There she is, Councilwoman Ortiz, who is providing the invocation this evening. If you will give your attention to her, please, and stand if you're able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There should be a Pastor Samuel Mitchell in the crowd. If you could show him to the front, please.
Right here.
Father God, we thank you for allowing us to come together at such a time as this. We thank you for life and the blessing of life. God, we ask that you come in with us as we meet with the mayor and the councilman and the councilwoman and the citizens of this great city. God, give us to be wise men and wise women that we may do what's right and good for others. Strengthen and be with us. Take control of this meeting. Give us to be kind to one another. Help us to strategize and do what's good, that all of us may come out with the best results. God, we know that you got answers and not problems, and that there's nothing too hard for you. Strengthen and be with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
I couldn't see him if he was in the audience, but I do want to say a little bit about him, if I may.
Please, go ahead.
Pastor Samuel Mitchell is a native of East Chicago, Indiana, and has been married to evangelist Missy Jeanette Mitchell for 29 years. He has resided in Kansas since 1977. He is a devoted father to one son and 3 daughters, a devoted grandfather to 3 grandsons and 7 granddaughters. Samuel has been the pastor and founder of Open Arms Outreach Ministry Church of God in Christ in Topeka, and that is on Southeast 11th Street. Pastor Mitchell's mandate is to serve as an outreach ministry in every capacity. Pastor Mitchell serves on the board of directors of You Can Begin Again. You Can Begin Again 2, to help young women establish a healthy lifestyle. He hosted a COVID site at his church, which was very well received by the East Topeka citizens. He feeds the homeless every 4th Saturday and gives out clothes to those in need and helps local churches within the community. And I would just like to thank him for all that he's doing in the community. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
You're welcome. And thank you, Pastor. Okay, the next thing we have is a proclamation on Women's Equality Day. And we have people joining us from the audience. If they'll join me up front here. I'm going to come around to you. Okay, before I get started, I want to recognize you to begin with. If you just want to go ahead and face the audience there so they know who I'm introducing. Carol Jordan, Darcella Goodman. It's been a while since you and I had a chance to visit. And Glenda Dubois. So they're here to receive the proclamation. And once I read it, I'm going to take a moment, just real quickly, to take a quick picture just to the side before we move on to the rest of the agenda. Okay? Okay. Proclamation by the mayor. Whereas Topeka, the capital city of Kansas, should lead the state in enhancing democracy through governance and voter engagement. And whereas we are proud to be the home of the League of Women Voters of Topeka, Shawnee County, and other groups that collaborate to increase voter participation and engagement. And whereas the League of Women Voters of Topeka, Shawnee County continues to encourage voter registration, voter education in the community, voter registration in all our high schools, and Washburn University as well as providing voter registration information to groups that partner with us. And whereas the League of Women Voters of Topeka, Shawnee County continues its civic engagement, presentations through our Tuesday topics discussions, attending and observing city-county governing bodies, and tabling and parading to encourage others to register and to get out the vote. And now, therefore, I, Mayor De La Isla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, Kansas, do proclaim the week of August 24th, 2021 as Women's Equality Week and August 26th as Women's Equality Day. In the City of Topeka, Kansas, I encourage the citizens of Topeka to join the League of Women Voters of Topeka, Shawnee County in registering and voting in the upcoming municipal elections and all elections to enhance our democracy and make Topeka known as a city that leads the state in voting and voter engagement. In witness thereof, I, Michelle De La Isla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby affix my official signature to the official seal of the City of Topeka on this day, August 17th, 2021. Congratulations for your work. You're welcome. Before we take a picture, we'll give each of you an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like. Darcella?
I'm Darcella Goodman. I've been participating with the League of Women Voters, representing the NAACP of Topeka, myself being president, and it's been a joy to be part of the organization.
I'm Glenda Du Bois, and I am the Executive Director of the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice. And it is an honor to be engaged with the League of Women Voters and NAACP as we really engage voters in voter registration and engagement and in observance of Women Equality Week.
I'm Carol Jordan, and 101 years ago this week, the 19th Amendment was ratified, and that started giving women in the United States the ability to vote. And the fact that Women's Equality Day is next week seems important to us in the collaboration and the honoring of women leaders, and we have a lot of great women leaders in Topeka. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll quickly move over here to give us just that indulgence. I appreciate it. Sing a song. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, we'll move on now to the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla is absent. Council members Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acala,
Here.
Ortiz,
Here.
Emerson,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Here.
Council members Nager,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Duncan. Here, but you cut out.
and Lesser.
Here.
We have 9 present.
Okay, thank you. Move on now to the consent agenda, if the clerk would read.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of June 26 through July 30, 2021, and enumerating city expenditures therein. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as the VBP Vets 2021 Corvette Show and Shine. C are minutes of the regular meeting of August 10, 2021, and there are no applications.
Okay, having heard the consent agenda, what is the pleasure of the body?
Move approval.
Have a motion to approve, second? Second by
Second.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. If you call the vote.
Councilmembers Lesser? Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Akala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
And Duncan.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion is approved. Move on to number 4, our action items. If the clerk would read, please.
A is a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Topeka, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings. Sanitary sewer improvements, Horseshoe Bend sub number 5, and amending, relating, repealing resolution number 9158.
City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tonight, we have before you an item the developer has requested that the improvement district be approved as amended to increase the total cost for the projects to $285,000 from $224,516.
Do we have any questions from the body? I'm trying to make sure we have
Councilman Duncan.
anyone signed. Pardon?
Duncan?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Duncan.
Couple questions. I guess a verification on one. We're just talking about the difference between those numbers, correct?
Correct.
Not an additional 288, whatever that is.
Right, changing 280 from 224 to 285, correct.
And how many there? I think we got a report there are 10 or 11 homeowners already living there in those 31 lots today.
Correct.
Were they required or did they receive any sort of notice that we would be considering this?
They're not occupied yet, so I don't believe that they did receive a notice.
Or are they owned by people or are they just constructed?
Yes, they're owned by others versus the developer, correct.
If we have no legal responsibility to notify them prior of this consideration?
Mary Feeney will assist us.
I can respond to that. The developer owns all of the lots, and the developer is the one who's requesting this increase in budget by $60,000. Once the construction, the improvements are made, then they're assessed back on the 31 lots. But at this point, the developer owns all the lots.
No, I stand corrected. My apologies.
Pardon me? Oh, okay.
Okay, but someone I'm just trying to get a clarification. I don't have an issue with this request per se. I guess my just concern is the individuals, once they purchase those homes, remit taxes back to the city, correct? It doesn't all flow through the developer at that point.
Correct. Yes, they'll have to pay the special assessments that the governing body will levy when this project is complete.
So I guess maybe we don't have a legal obligation. I guess it just bothers me a little that there's no obligation by the city or the developer to at least notify prior to this change those individuals who have purchased those lots that they're going to have this increase.
No,
So
but
I guess that's the only part of this that gives me heartburn, not the actual increase itself, because it's fairly minimal.
well, I may be able to assuage your concern. State law does require the owner to advise prospective buyers that their property will be subject to an assessment. So before anybody buys this property, they'll know that they're going to have to pay an assessment, and then they can make the choice whether to buy it or not.
People who have purchased already, though, were told the assessment was one cost, and now that assessment is going to change. I'm not concerned about the other 20 lots that haven't been purchased. I'm concerned about the 11 that have. So that's just my. I would like us to look eventually at a process of that, and that's my only problem here. Is I at least think those individuals should have had some prior notification that this would happen, so that if they didn't care, that's fine. Or if they wanted to say to the developer or us, hey, what the heck? They would have had that opportunity, because at this point, they're just going to be told, your assessment went up, city took a vote. So that's all. I'm just registering my concern over that part of the process. If it's not legally something we had to do, that's fine, then that's no one's fault. I just take issue with that. I wish that step were included at some point. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Mary, I have a question as well. Did I hear you say that the developer currently owns all the lots?
Yes, yes.
No individual has purchased any of those lots?
Yes, that's my understanding, so.
Yeah.
So that helps maybe with Councilmember Duncan's concern, and I can see where he's coming from. But
Sure.
If nobody's purchased, so it's not like somebody has purchased something and now it will change. This affects the entire development, and as you said, the state law requires that the developer, seller, has to notify any purchaser about that change.
Correct,
As a special.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
It appears there are houses that are built there, and it will affect those houses, but it is that none of them have changed hands is the difference. I think that's where we have the confusion, is there are houses built there, but they have not changed hands yet. So
Okay.
the sale is not complete, and so that's where we're looking at as the difference.
Okay. I still see his concern about,
Yes, I agree. that
Yeah.
They were sold expecting one, bought a lot expecting one assessment price, and then with this amendment, end up with a different price for their special assessment. That would be an additional cost that might have changed their mind related to that, their decision to purchase. I get that.
even though it's after the fact, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilmember Dobler.
But nobody's actually purchased a lot, is that correct?
That's right. That's what Mary
Okay.
Feeney has just stated, is that there has not been a purchase
Okay.
completed yet.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think that's, again, the confusion, if there's a
Right. House has
building
been built,
there.
but no purchase.
Okay. So that building there is owned by the developer,
Right.
not an individual. Okay, I understand. Any further questions from the
I
body?
appreciate that. Just one more comment. I appreciate that clarification, but to be clear, I have asked that question twice, and previously till just now was told that individuals had purchased homes. So if that's the case, then no problem here. But that's the first time I've got a definitive, no one else owns those homes yet. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Any further questions from the body about this resolution, 4A? Okay. What is the pleasure of the body?
Move approval.
Have a motion to
second.
approve by Councilmember Dobler. Is there a second?
Second.
Hager.
Second from Councilwoman Nager. Will you call the vote, please?
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to action item 4B, if the clerk would read, please.
B is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing and directing the issuance and sale and delivery of $4,140,000 in the aggregate principal amount of general obligation temporary renewal and improvement notes, Series 2021A, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax if necessary for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said notes as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
City Manager, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tonight, the city of Topeka entered the bond market today to sell $4,140,000 of temp notes and $20,990,000 in bonds. The sale was conducted, and Steve will describe the sale and the purpose for the funds. Steve?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor. We're joined tonight by Kaylin Dwyer from Columbia Capital and Kevin Cowan from Gilmore and Bell to assist with questions tonight. The first item in front of you is for temporary notes, half of which is tied in with facilities improvements.
Do you have any questions from the body on this resolution? Okay. Does he have a presentation for us?
Kalen, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so good evening, Deputy Mayor, City Council. Again, Kalen Dwyer with Columbia Capital Management, the city's financial advisor. Like Steve and Brent said, this action pertains to the city's issuance of about $4 million in temporary notes to provide temporary funding for certain projects. We received 4 bids today for the notes.
Sir, if I can interrupt just a moment, could you get your volume up just a little bit? It's a little difficult to hear you.
Is that better?
A little.
Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, we received 4 bids for the city's. Great. We received 4 bids for the city's notes this morning. The winning bid produced a true interest cost of 0.20%, which exceeded the second place bid by about 0.0001%, which is as tight of a race as I've seen in a very long time. So this outcome was indicative of a very strong demand for the city's bonds and competitive market result in terms of interest rates. So with that, I will open it up to any questions pertaining to the $4 million in notes.
Thank you. Any further questions from the body? Councilwoman Hiller.
Just a brief one, and I think I had asked in advance, but exactly what projects is this covering, please?
So we have 4 projects that are special assessments. We have a neighborhood infrastructure program for 2022. And we have $2 million in facilities improvement, repair, and maintenance program.
Okay. In terms of any of us trying to track this on a report, the name of the project would be helpful so that we know what it is.
So first project is, these are the special assessments. You have Sherwood Village. Horseshoe Bend. Horseshoe Bend number 5. And street improvements in Aquarian Acres.
Okay.
The neighborhood infrastructure program is $125,000. And then the firm program.
Is it for a certain neighborhood, or is that?
I can't answer that.
Okay, thank you.
And then the $2 million plus is for the firm program.
So these are both in advance of getting the project started?
Yeah, these are before they're finished, where we would permanently bond. So these are 12-month notes.
Are these projects underway already? I guess I didn't ask it well.
I think some of them are.
Okay, otherwise this is anticipating that we need it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Any further questions from the body? Okay, what is the pleasure of the body?
I'll move approval.
Okay. Motion to approve by Councilmember Dobler, second from Councilmember Nager. We call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Valdivia Ackel,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
and Hiller.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on to action item 4C. City Manager.
Thank you. This is the second component today of our bond sale, and I'll let Steve cover it with Kalen.
Happy to share that between last Tuesday and today, We have saved over $5 million through refinancing savings. So we had another $919,000 of savings today on top of what we had last week. The winning bond today, or the winning bid today, was just under 1.2%, 1.799%. This is for projects. There are 3 projects in particular of note. Fire department fleet replacement at $1,640,000. Southwest 10th Avenue, Fairlawn to Wanamaker at $6 million. And Southwest Gage Boulevard, 37th to 45th. So of the $21 million, we have $9,420,000 in new project, with the balance being refinance.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional information or questions from the body from Mr. Wade?
Question.
Councilmember Dubler.
Are we, the bonds we refinance same term as before, or are we extending the term?
We are not extending the term.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Hiller.
Is the fire engine for 10 years or 15?
10 years.
Thank you. The
Yes,
others
ma'am.
are 15?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good. Any further questions? All right, what's the pleasure of the body? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll still second.
Okay, and a second from Councilmember Hannah Nager. Okay, well, if you call the vote, please.
I'm going to read the ordinance into the record before I take the vote.
Okay.
C is an ordinance
Sorry.
introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, authorizing and providing for the issuance of $20,990,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation refunding and improvement bonds, Series 2021C, of the City of Topeka, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, and making certain covenants with respect thereto. All right, we have Council Members Ortiz.
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Nager, excuse me, Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council Members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
and Valdivia Aquila.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We'll get back into order here now and move on to 4D. If the clerk would read, please.
D is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout prescribing the form and details of and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of $20,990,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation refunding and improvement bond Series 2021C of the City of Topeka, Kansas, previously authorized by the ordinance of the issuer, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Thank you. City Manager.
This is the resolution that connects with the ordinance that was just approved, and we seek approval from the governing body.
Okay. Any questions from the governing body? Councilmember
This is
Hill.
not a question. I just wanted to say I appreciate how tight this is. And also with that combination of saving, and appreciate the identification of what was in there. I think we need to always do that. The fact that we saved $1 million today and $4 million last week is pretty substantial in terms of understanding what it is we're taking on at different rates. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment from the governing body? Questions? Okay. What is the pleasure of the body?
I'll move approval.
Okay, move approval from Councilmember Dobler. Is there a second? Second from Councilwoman Ortiz. Good. Thank you. If you'll call the vote, please.
Council members Emerson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on to action item 4E, notice of a public hearing date. If you'll read, please.
E is establishing a public hearing date of September 7, 2021 for the purpose of hearing and answering objections of taxpayers relating to the proposed City of Topeka 2022 operating budget, setting the maximum expenditure limits, and authorize the publication of the public hearing notice.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. We've been working through the budget process over the last couple of months, and this sets the date for our hearing on the budget for September 7th. We'd already established September 7th as our date for our revenue neutral hearing, but now we have to approve setting the public hearing date for the actual budget for the same date.
Okay, so that's all we're doing is just setting the
Setting the
date for that public hearing.
Correct.
Okay. So any questions in the body?
Move to approve.
Okay. Have a motion to approve from Councilwoman Hiller, a second from Councilwoman Ortiz. If you call the vote, please, Brenda.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
and Emerson. Yes.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on to action item 4F. And I believe we have 2 people signed up to speak public comment on 4F.
F is an ordinance introduced by Council Member Spencer Duncan concerning professional service contracts over $50,000, amending Topeka Municipal Code Section 33010 and repealing original sections.
Okay. We have Teresa Miller. I see Teresa here. She's moving to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's been a while since I've been up here.
Yeah, it is.
It's really short what I have to say, and I wrote it down so I won't mess up. I stand behind what Councilman Duncan is asking for, that our professional service contracts over $50,000 should be approved by the governing body. This will show transparency, something that has been lacking in the city communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, for your comments. And we also have Mr. Joe Ledbetter, who's in the audience.
Are you going to be longer than that?
I wonder. Thanks, Neil. So I rise in support of this ordinance and to not go over old material, but I've already talked about this in front of this committee, and I thank the committee for taking it up and actually passing it on with a recommendation. When you do this, it doesn't cover all the contracts over $50,000. I still don't know exactly how many of those have been signed this year. Last year's aggregate total contracts was $71 million. But the amounts over $50,000 are of particular interest to me because other cities are also doing this in Kansas. Wichita has that requirement on all contracts. Shawnee is a small town. It's got it on 20,000. Manhattan requires over 50,000 to be approved by their council commission. Those terms can pretty much be interchangeable, but I know that this was passed a long time ago. I don't know who originally wrote the charter. I do see problems with it in that it allows so much power to be concentrated in one signature without the approval of the council. But what this will do if you pass this, it's only going to cover maybe 25 to 30 contracts a year. I don't know. Maybe they'll go down, maybe not. But basically, it offers kind of a checks and balance, at least on this type of contract. And it offers an opportunity for transparency. It offers an opportunity, since it'll be an action item, for public comment. And, you know, any scrutiny that the public may bring to such a contract or not. Probably most people won't be interested, but a few might. And I just like the idea that the public can comment on things like this, and that the council actually gets to ask questions, just like you did the earlier bond issue, although that's a different deal. I like the fact that at least the information was laid out on the record, and that's why I didn't speak, because I already called and gotten that information. But with these contracts, I don't know when they're going out, who's signing them, or what they're for, until after the fact if I file a CORA and get that information. But there's no downside to this. The MTA, which I'm on that board, we approve every single contract that comes before that body. I don't mean just that body. I mean, we approve every contract, or it's not done. If we vote it down, it's voted down. The county commission certainly is not a manager form of government, but they're just across the way, and I happen to live in Shawnee County as part of the Topeka city limits. I'm in Shawnee County as well as Topeka. And so they approve every single contract, even $1,000 contracts. I know that from watching them and being involved with Parks and Rec. I don't have any problem with that extra scrutiny. It doesn't bother me, but that's not what we're asking for tonight. We're just simply asking you to scrutinize these professional contracts with the city of Topeka that are over 50,000 and, you know, be at least in that one area, similar to other cities in this state. Because I guess when I just reread that charter ordinance last year, it just struck me how much money a person can sign for under contract and not have the scrutiny of the council. So I'm asking you to vote for this. There's no downside to it. It's very positive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And this was a recommendation from the Policy and Finance Committee, and a vote to 3 to unanimous vote. Would anybody from the committee like to speak to the recommendation or speak in support of this recommendation? Excuse me? Spencer? Councilmember Duncan?
Thank you. Yeah, I brought this forward, and I'll give you a little bit of my rationale and then tell you what our process was in committee. I had a couple reasons for bringing this forward. The first was I just think in general it's good policy, so that one's pretty simple. A majority of municipalities in Kansas do this, so it's not off the beaten path. It's not something that others, including larger municipalities than us. It does only cover those consulting contracts, which I believe since City Manager Trout has been here, I think his lowest year was 5 or 6 contracts and his highest was 12 or 13. So that kind of gives you an idea of what that range could be that it would cover in any given year. It is not written nor intended to make us a part of the ongoing process and interfere with staff's process of choosing who it is and vetting those people and putting those contracts together. It is a measure for us and the public to just see it right before it would get a signature and ask questions and express any positives or negatives we might have on that if we so choose to do. Another reason I thought this was a lot of these contracts that fit this bill often lead to public policy decisions by us. And that whether it's housing or developments or beautification or large utility projects. And so I think these tend to be more public, some of the results of these contracts, because they become public presentations that we then use to make decisions. And so I think it's important that those are a little different than every road contract that's signed after we've approved, you know, a CIP project. So I think because of that public policy implication, it'd be nice to have some input before they're lotted out. The other thing that got me, the third thing was, I've noticed we've had, I think, 3 of these types of presentations, maybe 4 since I got on the council. And I noticed that we tend to spend the first part of those conversations asking this question. why did we hire this company? How much did we spend? What was that process? And those are valid questions, but those aren't really a valid time because by that time the money's been spent, the consultant work has been done, and they're just presenting their findings. And so we kind of end up asking probably some good questions just at the wrong time. And so it occurs to me that if we want to ask those questions, it would be beforehand to have an option if we so choose to pull something out and let the public speak on it or if we had questions. So I was hoping that we could then, once we get those presentations, focus on what's in them as opposed to how we got them, because this provides us an opportunity beforehand to ask that. So I did take this to the Policy and Finance. We had a couple meetings on it, worked with staff to craft it in a way that staff found workable for their process. Council members Emerson and Nager had many questions that we worked through in terms of how this would work, what its implications could or could not be. They were all great questions. And then obviously we tinkered it and wrote it to a point to where it sits in front of you today as it was passed out by the committee. So that's kind of why I brought it forward and how we got here.
Thank you, Councilmember Duncan. Any further comments from the committee members?
No,
A question I
thank you.
might have, Councilmember Duncan. We speak to and the topic of transparency. How does, I'm supportive of this, but can you get some detail as to how that will help with transparency, not just to this body, but to the general public?
Sure, it'll put those documents as part of our meeting packets up front, which doesn't always happen, as opposed to just maybe part of a monthly or yearly, quarterly expenditure report that we receive. So it'll have an opportunity for everyone to sort of take a look at those before they get signed by the city manager and for us. So, and again, the goal here is not to say that every of these contracts is terrible and we're going to spend hours of each meeting picking each one apart. But it does give everyone an opportunity to come forward, whether it's a member of this body or a person of the public, to just say, hey, I'm just curious, what is your actual goal here? And, let's double check that we're spending the right amount and get those answers prior. So I think it does give us another layer of transparency on, like I said, on contracts that come back to us in pretty big packages of presentations that we then use to make decisions.
Okay, thank you. If there aren't any further questions, Councilmember Duncan, do you want to make a motion to approve it?
So move it.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. If you'll call the vote, please.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Padilla.
Yes,
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
thank you. Move on to action item G, governing body rules and procedures. If you would read, please.
G is approval of governing body rules and procedure amendments.
Deputy Mayor, can you recognize Chair Duncan first? He has a
I was
request.
going, yeah, thank you. Councilmember Duncan, would you?
Deputy Mayor,
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that this be sent back to committee for some reconsideration, not for any negative reasons. I've just had some feedback since we sent this revised version up. We had some feedback from a few members who had some actually pretty good ideas for a few small changes that we should probably make in committee before we bring it back for a vote. There also may be a topic of omission that we may have missed, and we need to go back to committee and either include it or come back to the whole body with a process for a discussion on that issue as regards to public comment. It was not included in how we're going to move forward with that electronically in the future. So we decided it was best to maybe send it back to us to make those fixes and get it back to you in about a month or so. Maybe we'll have a meeting mid-September and be able to work those changes. So I would respectfully request and move that we send it back to committee for us to take all that feedback into consideration.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. For discussion, I'd like to ask, we have one person signed up for this for public comment, so would that negate the need for that public comment today then if this motion does pass? No?
No, you can still consider
Still
it.
have public comment?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure that someone who signed up here gets that opportunity to speak. Councilmember Hiller.
This is just a question. If we're sending it back to committee, can we just do that? Can we not set a date certain for it to return?
We refer it back to the committee, and then by governing body rules, it has to come back in
They've got
90 days.
Okay,
Sure.
good, thank you.
All right. So before we take the vote, I'd like to have Teresa Miller come up and give her comments, please.
Just a short, I believe if you approve what he's doing, and he's going to revise it, but still, when they do it, what makes me happy about this is that if you approve the amendments that they eventually will make for the governing body rules, that will bring more transparency to the governing body as a whole. So I support anything like that will give more transparency for people like me to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. It sounds like that's what he's trying to do, is to make it even more complete before we move forward with the vote. So we have a motion and a second to return this to the committee. Will you call the vote? Are there any questions from the body? Okay. Will you call the vote, please?
Council members Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla, Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
and Councilmember Nager.
Yeah.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on to action item H. If you would read, please.
H is approval of the 2022 Annual Consolidated Action Plan and Budget.
Okay, this was an item that was deferred from our August 10th meeting. We do have someone signed up to speak to this. I have two people. Teresa Miller. If you would come forward, please.
Hello again. I'm going to read this to you. How can anyone vote for approval of FY 2022 Annual Consolidated Action Plan and the budget when it is not completed? We have the neighborhood plans all up in the air. Neighborhood leaders have no idea what is going on with the so-called dream plan that is to be replaced with SORT grant. The whole neighborhood plan for our NIAs is a mess. We can't make heads or tails out of this mess. Our city manager has not finished taking part of our neighborhoods and has taken apart our neighborhoods and our programs that benefit them. The neighborhoods should have the input in what they really want, and not have the city government tell them what they will get. Our governing bodies should be watching what is going on in their neighborhoods. Remember, these are the people that put you in office. I have a couple of questions I would like to ask the governing body. I'm confused on who is running the show in our city government. In our city ordinance, I thought that the governing body was to vote on items, give their approval, then send it off to the city manager. But what I am seeing in this is that the city manager is telling everybody what to do without input from the governing body. Does this not break some type of rule? I am seeing things being done in our city without input from the governing body that should have a say-so. Why do we not have checks and balances? We need to make sure this is being done. I have heard from several people from different parts of the city that they do not like the way our city manager is running our city. There is no transparency in our city government, and the people would like to see this happen again. They would like to see something done about these two problems. People feel they are not being listened to. They would like to keep the way we are running the city with the city manager position. They do not want to go back to the strong mayor. Please listen to the people that voted for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And we also have Nazone Graves. Nazone, I see you in the audience today.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council, administrators, and everyone. First, more importantly, I just wanted to come and thank the City Council and the members who voted to defer this till this week for the decision. It wasn't what I came last week for it to happen, but I do appreciate the willingness to exercise due diligence. And as I have always been told, that, informed decisions can be had when you have all the information in front of you. And so I did want to reiterate that what was proposed through me and our organization isn't anything new. Have proposed it for a while. And really it is based off of numbers that have been provided by city employees and by the census. And normally I try to address it because it impacts poverty and those things that are disproportionate. Unemployment, poverty, procurement, things of that nature there. So more importantly, I found some information, I don't know how correct it is, but it's from a credible source. And I do use race as an indicator because I believe that just as a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, a community is only as strong as its strongest, most viable citizen or its poorest citizen. So when I was looking at the poverty numbers, it is said that the black poverty rate in Topeka was like 24.2%. And then from the information shared from the housing study, where the black unemployment was 10 point something, which was higher than both the white and Hispanic unemployment combined. I don't know, that just sort of sits in my stomach to whereas when I don't see or hear people coming and speaking about this from the communities, organizations that are funded on an ongoing basis, and the numbers continue to get worse. And then when you try to seek out something different or change, like, well, that's just how it's always done. That's the way it is. That just doesn't sit well with me, and I'm hoping that those type of things just don't sit well with leaders as well. I believe that we can do so much better. When I sit, and there's parents, poor kids, they don't even know this meeting is going on. They don't know anything about you. They don't understand how what you say here, decisions that you make, impact their immediate lives and the lives of the long term. I can only speak for myself, not any other group, any other leader in the community. If they don't want to come and speak to this issue, that's them. I'm going to come and speak to this issue here because I believe that we can do better when we listen to millions of dollars being chopped up and spent, and only $4 or $5 million really dedicated to affect lower income neighborhoods and people. I mean, you sort of get what you pay for. If you put more in sewers and even roads, you should have great sewers and roads. But if you only put such a minimal number into the livelihood of lower income, those who don't always have a voice in this room, then these are the numbers that you get. I do believe that the city can do better. Again, I want to thank those who chose to defer this to this week. Hope you had a chance to read the recommendations that I submitted. And I hope that change for the better happens here in Topeka. I live here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. City Manager, would you like to speak to this item at all?
Well, just a few things. The numbers, we apologize for not including the comments in last meeting, but as I stated, we were more than willing to defer in order to ensure that those comments got in, and they were included and submitted to the packet on Thursday. When you look at the information that was provided, we had multiple hearings as it relates to this with the CAC and with the general public being available. Homeless Task Force, there was an open 30-day comment period. So we've received the opportunity, provided plenty of opportunity, in my opinion, for the public comment to be made. So one of the things that I want to comment too, as far as decisions that are being made with the con plan, the money that's being put into each of these categories is being decided by the governing body, not by staff. We simply put a proposal together. Based on the feedback that we received at the CAC meeting, we made changes. And Corey went back and made changes, and those are included as well and outlined in the last page of the document where it shows where changes were made in the allocations, both in reductions or additions. And so we did listen relative to public comment that we received, and I want to make sure that that's noted. As regards to the SORT and DREAMS program, that is being worked on by staff, and eventually it will be brought back before the governing body for discussion. It is one of those things that we've been spending a lot of time on. I had just a meeting last week with Director Finder. We've got some tweaks that we're doing to it, and then we'll be ready to bring it back before the governing body after the budget process is complete. And then we'll be able to have a discussion on whether that's something that we want to change, and based on what we believe to be the best way to do it, and then get feedback from the governing body as to how that should be handled. So it's not me that's going to make decisions on that. I'll bring you a recommendation, and then I look for input from you. So all of these things are being run through you in order to make decisions relative to how this money is being handled.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from any of the governing body? Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
We're voting on this tonight, is my understanding, and I'm not going to be able to support it after the dialogue that we had last week. I also have questions that I'm not going to take a lot of opportunity to speak about tonight, but as we go into, when it comes time to vote on this again, I certainly hope to be more diligent, because I do have questions from Chodo to Toto to what happened to the NIAs, and I definitely understand that looking at, especially coming from a district that is low to moderate income, it is imperative for me to stay on top of this, and I'm not making excuses, but I am saying that this all can be completely new and overwhelming, and it really makes you realize how important it is to continually do your homework, which is what I continue to do, and why I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment from the governing body? Councilwoman Hunter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple. I really appreciate the exchange. The DREAMS program has come up a couple of times, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the DREAMS program, as put together by the working group for representatives of 8 neighborhoods, is a 16-point plan to improve the engagement in the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods in the community. So it is not just a switch out of a grant program. With that, and it, as the city manager says, that will come forward. But part of that is to engage better the input at the CAC level and so on. That said, once we got the comments on the plan from this year, it is clear that even though we'd like to see more participation perhaps in the neighborhoods and in the CAC, that those who were engaged did participate. And it was also very clear that what they wanted was to prioritize all of that money for housing, for affordable housing in various ways in the neighborhoods, not only the CDBG money, but certainly the home money, emergency shelter grant money, and the other HUD grants that come through to us. And so, and they did that, and they moved some things around. And so moving forward, we've talked about other programs that have private money, like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I appreciate that Lozone is so good about bringing up workforce things, but that's not typically what's been funded with CDBG money, and the group made it really clear they wanted it to continue to be housing, and I can support that with that input. So just wanted to make those couple of points. Again, we'll get to DREAMS later, but it's really looking at taking the kind of participation that was reflected in the notes here and improving it, but certainly respecting it as well. So I appreciate the wait of the week as well to get all the attachments out. If people are ready this week, I will support it. still have questions about the inmate program as well, and we'll get to that, I guess, later in the agenda. But either way, it was a priority to have those crews working, and we'll find out a little more about exactly how they're going.
Thank you. Further comments from the body? Any questions? What is the pleasure of the body? Have a motion? Okay. Have a motion to approve from Councilwoman Hiller, second from Councilmember Lesser. If you'll call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
No.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, Ms. Valdivia Akala voting no, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes all the action items that we have on the
Deputy Mayor?
agenda. Yes,
Can I explain my vote briefly
surely.
for the record? So I voted yes this evening because we sort of had a deadline bumping up against us that we sort of had to get this thing out, or else we would put some of the funding and others in jeopardy. And I absolutely think that as a whole, the work that the staff does on this is to be commended, and it's a no-win at times. There's a lot of individuals and groups who need this money, who are asking for this money. I just want to reiterate our conversation last week, and to be honest, the city manager made a comment that, well, these are recommendations from staff, but the final decision is ours. That is accurate. But if we don't see information like public comment until the last minute, as happened here, it's hard for us to then have time adequately to make those decisions. And I do feel like we didn't get that in a timely manner, and made it difficult for us with the deadline we were up against to really take a good look at some of that public comment. So my yes vote tonight was hesitant in the sense that I want this money to get out and done, but we've got to do better in making sure that that information is provided to us as a body in a more timely manner moving forward. So thank you very much.
Duly noted with your comments. I think you had others who supported the need to defer so we could get the additional information. So thank you for your comments. Moving on, again, that completes the agenda for the action items. And move on to the non-action items. First we have the non-action item is A discussion of the 2022 Special Alcohol Grant Fund. If the clerk would read.
A is discussion of funding recommendations by the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Advisory Council in the amount of $590,000 for the 2022 Special Alcohol Fund.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tonight, Don Crowder, if you go ahead and come forward, is here tonight to discuss the recommendations from the committee. This is an allocation of funding that we receive related to expenditures, the tax that is put on alcohol. And so we asked him to go through his recommendations.
Yes, sir. I'm Don Crowder. I'm the chair of the Grant Review Committee for the Topeka-Shawnee County Alcohol and Drug Advisory Committee. Tonight we have Max Wilson. He's the chair of the committee. We also have some of our grant applicant representatives. We have Kathy Walker from Vallejo. We have Mandy Chikansky from PARS and Amanda Wilson from the Shawnee County Drug Court. Tonight we're just going to provide a summary of our recommendations to the City Council from our Special Alcohol and Drug Advisory Program. Part of the mission of the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Program is to advise on how the expenditures on the special alcohol and drug tax, basically the liquor by the drink tax. This presentation is basically just a presentation on the grant applicants. The vote is customarily given the week following the presentation. And so tonight I'm just going to give you some a summary of the grant applicants and the amounts that we're recommending. So one of the agencies is PARS, that's Prevention and Recovery Services. One of the programs that they're advocating that we fund is their prevention programs. The amount that we're looking to fund is $173,000. Oh, that's the amount funded in 2021. The amount requested for 2022 is $184,667. And the recommendation from our committee is for $172,342. The reason there's a difference between their request and the amount approved is the money's available. The next agency request is also PARS, Prevention and Recovery Services. It's for their evaluation and intervention program. Their 2022 request is for $60,000. Our recommendation is for $57,171. The next agency is Third Judicial Court, which is the drug treatment program. Their request was for $60,500. Our recommendation is $51,644. The last program is Kansas Children's Service League. It is the Drug Endangered Child Program. Their request was for $14,000. Our recommendation is for $13,214. So our total, the last one is Vallejo. It's their social detox program. Their request was for $297,775. Our recommendation is for $295,629,000. So of the total requests, the total amount of total requested funds was $616,942. The total monies available and grants requested are $590,000. Detailed grant applicants and request expenditures are available to the City Council to be reviewed offline in the next week, and if appropriate, voted on next week. Any questions?
Any questions, any discussion with regards to the alcohol grant program? You offered that the details to those requests are available now?
Yeah, you guys should have them digitally.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So everybody has an opportunity to read those before we act or take action on it next week.
Yes.
I think that's important that we have
Yes,
that
sir.
detail. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Ortiz?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to thank your committee and say hi to Max out there for this report. And I realize that all of these agencies are very, very important. But I'm a little partial to KCSL for the Drug Endangered Child. And I would like to know why we can't give them the $14,000 that they're requesting. When we have these social workers that are seeing these parents and they're going into these homes and they're seeing these parents on drugs, we just can't do enough for them. And I know it's just a little, what is it, about 700? 13. Right in there, is there a reason why we can't give them 14?
Ma'am, it may say in the grant funding request the details of that. Off the top of my head, we have a scoring system, and there's a possibility that it may have been one of the ones that it could have been the diversity of their board.
And so you have a scoring system that scores everybody, and that's how you come up with that score?
Yeah, that's one of the scoring criterias. And so if you look at the scoring criterias, it looks at both their kind of meeting the mission of the drug and alcohol treatment mission. But then it goes into criteria like the diversity of their board members. And because I do not have the sheets right in front of me, you may be able to look at KCSL scoring, but I think I apologize, I don't have that in front of me today.
I don't have it in front of me either, but I just want to see us do more for our kids, especially when you go in these houses and you see what's happening. That's a small number.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Max. Max can make it happen.
Yeah,
Thank you, Max.
he's here, so I'll let him know. No.
Because, and I agree with the drug treatment court. I agree with their figures, you know, but if there's some way we can make that happen for them, for our kids, that would be great, because it starts in the home and then it trickles on over down to the court system. So it just seems like a small amount that they're asking for. Again, thank you.
You're welcome. Appreciate your time.
If I could have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen this before when we were doing granting for some of the other agencies, when they came across this issue of diversity on their boards. I would hope that the boards are constantly recruiting, trying to make some improvements on that area there. Is there an opportunity for those who fall short of that diversity quotient, resources for them so they can access and hopefully recruit people into that organization so they have that diversity, so that isn't a stumbling block? I know that that's a difficult thing to do. I remember talking with some of the NIAs and trying to find that diversity, and I offered at that time there are different groups and organizations that you may reach out to that might help with that, growing that diversity. Do they have that opportunity during the application process or prior to it?
So I'd have to defer that question. This being my first time as the chair of the board, and Max, do you have any comment on that? It's court. One that was, of course.
He needs to come up.
Pardon. Not talking, maybe we'll talk like, maybe I have a up there. Kind of bring that to him, sir.
Yeah. Save him.
That is one of the been rather problematic for a number of years, and they get up to the grant presentation, and they score lower in there, and it's typically many of them have historically low scores, indicating poor diversity. We encourage them. We actually have refunded a portion of the grant because of that as a penalty. That seems to be working. Well, we started it last year. It worked in a couple of instances. So we're tracking some more. But it's difficult area.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments on there. And I would, obviously, everybody sitting on this council has a huge network of people that they interact with, and I would encourage you to reach out to any member of the governing body to see if they have some ideas that would help with that diversity issue for the board, because there are people who I think are willing to serve. They just haven't been asked because they're not aware of the need as much.
Right.
And I think once we make that clear, hopefully there will be people who step forward and help with that.
One solution, we've just invited Washburn University to return to the council, and they've assigned a faculty from their Human Services Department, which is where their addiction program is, to our council. And I think that's a possibility for future students to then be a diverse membership on some of the committees and board membership of some of the panels for our grant applicants. And I think that's a way that Washburn can feed some of the diversity out in the community that we need.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And
yeah.
Besides diversity, the youthfulness is another component that I think is really good to encourage as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Douglas.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you and your committee for this work. I know it's difficult to make these recommendations. It'd be great if you had enough money to cover everything.
Yes, sir.
So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Duncan.
City Manager.
Oh, no, Councilman Duncan has a question.
Oh, I didn't see him up there. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Duncan.
Okay.
And then Councilmember Nager.
Okay, I guess this first question may be for staff. The 590,000 is 1/3 of our projected amount that we expect to receive in 2022 from the liquor enforcement tax collection.
From 2021.
So our estimate is 1.7 million.
It is, what you're stating as far as the calculation is accurate. Finance is digging here to see if they can pull their number up, what we're
Well, I
projecting.
just want to make sure we're close. I mean, that's generous. So we give that number. I'm trying to look at the process here. So the $590,000 number was given to the committee by us as that 1/3.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the state law dictates that we must give a minimum of 1/3, but we can give whatever we want, correct? And I know that's a broad statement, but I just want to clarify.
What else is it? Where's the other 2/3 go?
Yeah, does it go to the general fund?
Yeah, I believe that's accurate. Steve's looking.
Because in short, here's what bothers me. We are talking about a difference of $8,458 that would ensure that these agencies have at least the same budgeted amount from 21 entering 22. So that, and in short, every one of these recommendations, which is no fault of the committee, it's the number they were given, but of the process is that they are all taking a cut from us in these programs, as Councilmember Ortiz very aptly pointed out. And in her case, her organization is getting cut a whopping $786. I feel very strongly that we can allot, at bare minimum, $8,458 additional dollars from that liquor enforcement tax fund to ensure that they at least don't see a quote-unquote cut from us from 21 to 22. So I guess I would be much better off voting yes for this a week from now if we could sort of make that happen. I mean, truthfully, we could probably come up with the $26,942 that makes all their budget requests whole. But I understand that money goes to the general fund and every cut somewhere comes from somewhere else. But I would really like to see us dig up at bare minimum that $8,458 if we think that's possible. So that's just my thoughts out into the universe to staff and my colleagues.
City Manager?
Yes, we'll look through between now, we're not voting on this until the next meeting on September 7th. So we will look through the budget pieces and see what we can do to make up that difference.
Thank you. Then Councilwoman Nager, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, but Council Member Duncan kind of stole my thunder, and I agree with exactly what he said. So thank you for making that comment. I am very grateful to the committee for making these recommendations. Like Council Member Dobler said, this is hard stuff, and I know that for myself, Kansas Children's Service League is a soft spot for me too, with my mom being a social worker and dealing with some of these sorts of issues in her everyday job. And yeah, if there is a way that we can at least get people to those 2021 levels, that would be great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, City Manager.
Any further comments for discussion? Councilwoman Hiller.
If we're considering that, I want to just throw out just a short word of caution. It appears from the testimony that they are using a scoring system similar to what we do for our own social service grant process. And if the body wants to change the total that's available, certainly we can. But I hope that the body will honor the work that the committee did, the standards that they set out, and the scoring that they did, and have it be, if we want to put more money in the proverbial pot, that nonetheless the scores are respected and it is apportioned based on the work that the committee did with the standards.
Thank you. Further comment for discussion? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Move on to non-action item B, a report from the Public Health and Safety Committee.
B is an update from the Public Health and Safety Committee on the City of Topeka Property and Premises Report.
Okay. Who's giving us our...
I would turn it over to the chair, Councilwoman Hiller.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Here we go again. Okay, this is a report. It's a briefing today, but we are, the committee has brought the property and premises review to a point where we want to take it out for public input. So we thought it was very much time to brief you as far as where we are and to ask for your advice and input on process, issues, and calendaring the hearings. You have a number of documents that are attached on the agenda. We are only going to make reference to the first one. Those who are here live have a print copy. Otherwise, it's the first attachment for those of you who are virtual. It's titled Topeka Property and Premises Enforcement and Improvement 2021 Preliminary Recommendation. So just so you have it. I'll do a brief presentation to try and bring you up to date. Property and premises issues, rather than just calling it code compliance, and you'll see why we changed that. Property and premises issues, as we know, are really major in Topeka. We get different ones and different volumes of complaints or concerns in each of our districts, and the Public Health and Safety Committee was very aware of that. Also, I think everybody knows that some of our body members deal with multiple code compliance or property and premises issues daily and throughout the year. Public Health and Safety Committee took this issue on starting in early 2020 to both learn about the issues and the Property Maintenance Division practices and get them to a point where we could make well-informed recommendations for change. This evening, we want to briefly bring you up to date on that. During the 18 months, we spent about 6 months with presentations from Mike Haugen. And he had excellent PowerPoints. He walked us through the entire code, how the staff enforces, and the challenges that they have. Again, if you choose to take a deep dive into that work, the minutes of those meetings as well as the PowerPoints should be on the city's website and available to you to go all the way through. The issues, in short, as we know, have to do with substandard housing. And our housing study recently cited that we have 4,300 substandard properties in Topeka. We deal with overgrown vegetation and trash constantly, all over town, really, and with many repeat properties, as we know. We learned in the process of our exploration that the city of Topeka has a net loss to taxpayers of over $500,000 a year in between the abatement costs and fines that are billed to responsible property owners and what we actually collect. We bill about $1.5 million a year and collect about $960,000 by one of the reports that we got. And just to point out, those are calculated at actual costs, not more, in terms of fines and the costs that are assessed for administrative expenses as well. And last, vacant properties. The safety risks, the drain on property values, and the loss to our housing stock if those properties are neglected, housing and other property stock. And so let me say, and I'll speak for myself, but I think I can safely speak for the committee, Mike and his team do a fabulous job. They enforce the code and the programs as they're directed, and they handle an amazing amount of work. So we wanted to make sure that the council members understood that we're mutually appreciative of the work and that we mutually also understand the challenges to move us forward. One of the things that Mike pointed out too in the course of our conversations was that it is not code alone that is working on these issues. It overlaps with work that zoning does, the police, forestry, and we also have entities outside the city, such as KDOT, mowing rights of way, and something that came up oddly just this weekend. So it's not them alone, and so we needed to be looking a little more broadly in a multi-departmental way, and also in terms of engaging the public in helping us turn some things around and make the progress that everyone wants. Understanding that a substantial number of, so what we came up with was pretty much an agreement on the issues, but needing help on strategizing how we could best approach change. We thought that we were at the point where we wanted to take these issues out for public input last summer. Then with COVID, simply felt like we couldn't go out and couldn't invite anybody for input at that time. So what the committee decided to do is to draw from our own experience and draw up some aspirational, draft some aspirational and challenge goals. And then we spent the next 6 to 8 months as a committee in meetings with ourselves and with staff to kind of hammer out the language and those assumptions, the aspirational goals and the challenge. Staff meaning city manager, Director Haugen, members of the police department, saying, okay, is this really an accurate representation of what our issues are, and can we move forward on solutions? The 2-page document that you have in front of you is the summary of those shared assumptions, the list of partners, and the 4 challenge goals. And it is signed off by us jointly as ready to go. And so the committee voted on this document as a preliminary recommendation on July the 8th. With that, we gave it to city manager to go back with staff and give us a response to those challenges. In other words, some specific responses on what they thought they could do to advance those challenge agendas, as also identify places where they were kind of stumped and that we thought we needed some more ideas to move along. And so you have that in your packet to reference at your leisure. Just briefly then, for you and for the public, I'm going to go through what those assumptions and challenges were. Our assumptions, as agreed, were that we assume that our goals for property and premises work in the city of Topeka is the safety of people, the protection of structures, maintenance of an attractive environment, and improvement in property values. We set those out as goals for the department. Operations-wise, we had consensus that we wanted it to be straightforward and kind and fair, cost-effective, and fully integrated with other departments and services. See who I forgot. We did then list those various departments that I mentioned, as well as outside. You know, the county tax sales, for instance, are a key part of our network, as well as the departments that do enforcement or abatement and so on. Our aspirational goal, as agreed, is to bring up the quality of structures and premises in Topeka, Kansas, so that structures and premises violations are the exception rather than the rule, that our number of substandard properties is never over 500, recall the 4,300 that we have today, so that owners are motivated to take care of properties before city enforcement departments are even called, to simply change the culture. In fact, we've worked on Councilwoman Valdivia Alca and I have worked on a PowerPoint slideshow to use at those input hearings, and we have sort of renamed that challenge as changing the culture of property maintenance. We can do this, looking at a way to get those issues introduced. The 4 challenges are to reduce the current substandard structures by 50% within 5 years. The second one is to reduce deterioration in vacant structures. The third is to reduce the expense and revenue gap on the abatement cases by at least 50%. And the fourth is to improve the appearance of the community through management of uncultivated and overgrown vegetation, such that the average resident or visitor would score Topeka's property appearance at least a 7 on a scale of 10, and the police department would rate 80% or more of properties as in compliance with SEPTED. That's the standard that they've educated many of us about anyway, crime prevention through environmental design. And ideally to achieve those goals within 3 years, at the same time reducing the amount of tree and shrub abatements by city departments by at least 50%. The challenge then is to work those together. If we want to save money, for instance, we could reduce the number of violations that we're dealing with altogether, and the number of certified letters that have to go out, and the number of times that we need abatement teams to go out. We could perhaps adjust fees so that it was more of an incentive to the repeat offenders to get things done. We could do a better job perhaps of referring people at the neighborhood level or community-wide level to find out somebody who could mow their yard for them as a volunteer, or maybe a teenager down the block who could be paid. The staff has done so far a really good job of putting together resource lists for assistance for low-income folks that need to fix structures, whether it's painting or systems improvement. It's not, and the staff has done a good job of getting grants as well. Corey's maybe not here anymore. Yet it's not quite enough. So are there ways? We get plenty of comments from people who say X is a problem, or why don't you do X? And we want to collect from you all, from your experience as council members and the input that you've gotten, as well as from the public, all of those ideas, so that before the end of the year, ideally, if we can do all these neighborhood input hearings in September, we've got a meeting already scheduled for the middle of October to pull all of that together and ideally give you a final version, maybe unchanged, of these preliminary recommendations, as well as a punch list of strategies to actually put in place to address these issues. So we know it's challenging work. We again need some input from you, preliminary feedback and hopefully support for this initiative from our colleagues on the council. We'd like to have you assist us with neighborhood locations. What we've got in mind is to do 2 big public hearings from here in this hybrid format so people can come or Zoom in, one in the daytime and one in the evening. But then we want to get out into the neighborhoods and want your input on whether you think it's important in your part of town and where it might be good. And Councilwoman Valdivia Alca is going to follow me with some further details on that. Again, we want your input yourselves from your experience or your own thoughts. And we're hoping that our committee is Councilman Dobler, Councilwoman Valdivia Alca, and myself. We're hoping that all of you would attend at least one of those input hearings with us to be there firsthand for that exchange. And with that, I'll hand off to my colleague for some details. And she also has some thoughts about how we might approach it to get people to come. We need your help to get people to actually come.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hiller. I just have to say, with the period of time that I've been on the Public Health and Safety Committee,
I think that, I know this sounds so odd, but this is one of the most exciting committees that I've ever been on. And it's true, because I think that what we're looking at, especially with this rethinking and changing the culture of property maintenance and looking at the grassroots way in which we are approaching it, my thought is that this can really bring a multifaceted collaboration together that is so needed by this committee, by staff, by neighborhoods, and perhaps, you know, somewhere down the line, maybe even the private sector. Who knows? I mean, you know, we are, anything is possible here. So I'm excited about the initiative. And again, because to me, it is the true meaning of outreach in its truest sense. Because of the series of meetings that we're going to be having in September, the hybrid meetings here that Karen has, or the Councilwoman Hiller has talked about, but also that we are ready. We have our boots on the ground, our tennis shoes on, and we're going to be going wherever we need to go into the Topeka community to listen to folks and their ideas and engage with them on what they see, what they want to envision along with us as the future of property maintenance. Karen and I have been having some meetings as we put this slide presentation together, which I think is really going to be powerful. And I created a press release that has been drafted and submitted to you, City Manager, and we hope to hear back you know, a yes or no on moving this forward, because with this particular press release, what we are seeking is that positive community. We want to listen to you. Let's come together with this outreach initiative and entice them to attend. So what is needed right now, as Councilwoman Hiller said, is the coordination with all of our colleagues here on council. We have tentative locations additionally for Central Park Community Center, Oakland Community Center, Garfield Community Center, Crestview and Hillcrest. Yet our goal is to make sure that we create a master schedule and get that done as soon as possible. And tonight we are open to input, I mean, right at this moment in time, about what you see in your specific districts, if you would want to have a special session that is not at one of these particular areas. It's important for us to know, maybe if not tonight, email us and let us know, because we want to know by the end of the week so that we can start putting this together. And I believe that there is a lot of additional excitement that we haven't gone into yet about a wonderful, proactive, very thoughtful and strategic approach to property maintenance. And the goal is to have our colleagues, you all, take 40 minutes to look at this, you know, maybe when you're fixing dinner or washing or mopping or whatever it is that you do on your off time, and look at this video. But we also plan to share this with community that are engaged in wanting to see something new and different that has shown to work with property maintenance. And it comes out from a Karen Black with May 8 Consulting. She has had over 20 to 25 years in experience with working with cities, especially in underserved neighborhoods. And so again, you know, if we want to talk about any dates or times or locations that you would want to have in your district tonight, we're certainly open to the feedback. But I think, to me, this is a very exciting initiative, and I think that Karen and I, and I'm sure Councilman Dobler, in what capacity that he can, we're down to get moving and have a month full of September meetings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work that Councilwoman Hiller and Councilwoman Valdivia have put into this. I think I've learned more about code compliance from lots of different angles in the last year and a half than I ever thought I would. And it's an issue. It's a bigger issue for some council districts than it is for others, but The reality is it's an issue for all of Topeka, because most people driving through Topeka don't recognize council district lines. So and I know we put a lot of effort into things like bring back the boulevard, and a lot of those things really relate back to what we're talking about here. So it's needed, and I look forward to being a probably smaller part than other members of the committee, but definitely a part of it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Nager.
Okay, Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, committee, for your work on this, because this is what I mainly get emails about. I've gotten great responses from Mr. Haugen and really all of the city departments on responding to different citizen requests and getting kind of the background on different issues that people are having in neighborhoods. For District 6, it's a really residential district, and so this affects us greatly. So I'm very excited that you guys are looking into this. When are you planning on, like, what time of the day, what time of the week are you planning on making these meetings so people can attend?
What we've got going right now is with the Labor Day holiday, what we want to work in the month of September. With Labor Day and the Monday off, it was like, forget that week. Let's get our publicity out by the end of this month and that week. What we thought was that we'd really encourage people to look at the video that Christina had spoken of, the second week of September, which is like the week of the 13th, let's say. Just put that out and encourage people to come up with at least a thought or two of their ideas by watching that video, and then to focus on having our community input sessions on the 3rd and 4th weeks of the month. Right now, we have this room reserved for 9 to 11 the morning of Wednesday, the 23rd, and from 6 to 8 the evening of Thursday, the 24th. We wanted to give a daytime and an evening option for people. Did I get the days wrong?
22nd and 23rd.
Okay.
22nd is Wednesday.
22nd is Wednesday.
23rd.
Thank you.
Thursday.
We have had the Central Park, and notwithstanding what I just said, Central Park is willing to host a Central Topeka session, and their normal meeting date, they're about to start live meetings, and they're happy to have this be their first one. It would be the third Thursday, which is the 16th. 16th, right? So we're probably going to go with that. But again, Councilwoman Nager, Councilwoman Ortiz, with Central Park where it is that the place for Chesney Park and Elmhurst and College Hill to go? Or is there a location that you think would be better for your district? Things like that. So we'd like to schedule the rest of them, as Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala said, by the end of this week, so we can put out one master schedule. Our thought was that the neighborhood, whereas these will be televised and hybrid and all that the neighborhood ones, we would not ask for all the tech. City Manager Trout has agreed that the community engagement staff will come along with us to those sessions and be there to help with the presentation and the recording. One of the things we did was to set up the end of that slideshow so that we can add people's suggestions cumulatively as we make the rounds, so that people will know for sure that their suggestions were recorded. So it'll be on the tail end, but at least that way they'll be there and we can add them. Does that help?
That's very helpful.
Days or evenings, the sooner we can work that out so we can make sure that our committee can be there and that you can be there if you want to be, would be the best. Sometimes you have an organized group that's already meeting, sometimes not. So
I think that's great that you're leveraging those organized meetings and taking advantage of that, where we have concerned citizens and involved citizens already meeting. My recommendation for another place to meet would be Washburn University. That's very convenient for District 6 because it's right smack dab in the middle. But as far as the tech, to make sure that we have the appropriate utilities to record the meeting, and just the transportation options, whether people want to drive themselves, there's parking, or the public transportation options. I think that that would be a really good partnership to look into, but that's the only thing that I was thinking of. Thank you guys again for this work.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, the committee. Councilwoman Valdivia Acla, I couldn't remember in your list, was Highcrest in your list of locations?
Hillcrest?
No, Highcrest.
Oh,
Can be. It can't, it said Hillcrest,
We were
no
just throwing them out.
Highcrest. We were throwing them out. We can certainly,
I would ask you to consider
Highcrest?
Highcrest. Again, thank you to the committee for your update and report. I appreciate all the information. You know, it's significant being a city employee forever. I've seen code enforcement get battered around and beaten up, I don't know for how many years. And I think Mr. Haugen would attest that retiring into the job that he has now is probably as challenging as the one he had at the Topeka Police Department. But I appreciate all the work that he does. He's always very responsive to the requests made. So I appreciate this new look at code enforcement. So hopefully it will change. And I like the idea of encouraging citizen involvement, the block by block kind of a approach like we've done with crime as well. So I think that's a good idea. So thank you for the update.
you're welcome. Did Councilwoman Ortiz have something?
Councilwoman, did you have, Ortiz, did you have a question?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say to go into Highcrest as well. You know, because CRC has that big building. Cent would open up their church. There's plenty of room there. And there's a need right there. That's a really big need in the Highcrest area.
Yeah.
I like Central Park. Central Park has a big basement with the meeting and plenty of parking for the elderly that they can get in and out of there. I know if we need to look at Highland Park for East, that's always been a big spot for us to look at as well, to open up the cafeteria. And there's plenty of room. We've done several meetings there as well.
Okay.
It's a good thing that COVID has left, because I know that Karen has been trying to do this for over a year. This conversation has been going on. So it just makes it kind of hard when you have that stop. When I was on there, I remember that. I do have a question though. Karen, under reduce current substandard structures by 50%, you have activate the section of code that allows for courtesy inspections. What is courtesy inspections?
Well, I can leave Mike off the hook if he likes. Where you go in and actually walk through the property without doing a write-up and just give people a heads up about what they need to do.
So do they call code and ask them to come and do a courtesy inspection? Or how does this work? Or does code get called and so they come over to do a courtesy inspection? I just don't quite understand what that is.
Do you want to, there is some text in the staff response on that. Do you want to address it, Brent?
Right. I'll sure try.
Okay.
The issues with courtesy inspections that we have is that they need to be requested by the individual. We look at that, and it's no different than what we currently have in place for our interior inspections based on the state law. The only way we do interior inspections is if we're asked to come in and do them. And so in the sense of a courtesy inspection, it's looking, and we do often do the same thing where we take a look. If we've sent a notice and they say, I think we're done, we'll go out and look and see what they're done or not. And so that's really what we're looking at. I think that there are limitations on our ability to do courtesy inspections based on time. Right now, that's not something that we would have time based on. We have 4 open positions in that department, in that division. So we're really in a reactive position right now. Once we get fully staffed, then we can start looking and get caught up, and we can look at that kind of thing. But there are opportunities that if individuals think that they're addressing something and trying to be proactive in addressing it because of notification, say they receive a notification over the winter that they need to paint their home, and they go and take care of it, and they think they're ready to go, they can call code and say, hey, I think I'm done. Is this good enough? And we can check and make sure.
You're getting a little taste of what some of the back and forth has been with us through these 8 to 10 months. One of the things is that COVID is kind of brought up, but the idea that somebody could actually use their cell phone and just send a picture in and talk to somebody on the phone and say, is this a violation or not? They do that. They answer calls. Mike advises us whenever people call in, but encouraging that proactive problem resolution. If those things can be taken care of, then maybe, we're running the code compliance for the most part by complaint right now. If people are clear on what's a violation and they can just get it taken care of and not have to call code in the first place, we've got better housing or better premises, and it didn't require the city to go out at all. And that's happened before, as long as we're consistent and thorough. There's detailed wording in that handout that you have, and then you'll see a little more detail from the responses as well from the staff. But part of that conversation has been being worried about being short on staff and talking about where we are right now. And this is aspirational. This is to move us forward. So there are a lot of different conversations on the ideas and problems that have already been brought before us.
Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the work that you guys have done. And I will just continue to say this, as I've said for years and years. Education is the key. Educate, educate, educate. And until we can really thoroughly do that, we're going to have a lot of the same problems that we have. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Good conversation. Good update. I'd like to move on, if I could, to the next item on non-action is 5C, if the clerk would read.
C is an update from the Public Health and Safety Committee on the community-wide broadband initiative.
Okay. Councilwoman Hiller?
Stuck with me again, I think, but we'll keep it short. We have also been working, credit to Councilman Dobler, on the issue of broadband and access to broadband for the last roughly year and a half as well. Some things have begun to move, and we felt like it was time to just give you an update, kind of step by step through what we're familiar with through the committee meeting. If you choose to look for lots and lots of details, there are 9 pages in the minutes from our July 30 meeting talking about this in detail. I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis. The focus that we started with in the committee, there were really 4 layers, and each time we got through a layer, we said, oh, well, maybe we need to look at this next one. The first approach was physical access. Was there broadband service everywhere in town? And it turned out that the answer was yes. The committee, at Councilman Dobler's leadership, decided to focus just on this inside the city rather than the whole county. The city's needs are very different and are advanced, frankly, from what's available in the more rural areas right now. So when it turned out, Cox has been actively involved in those conversations, and AT&T has been invited and periodically has sent in some written testimony for us. But we thought the physical access might be a problem. It turned out we have that. So the next issue was affordability. What about people being able to actually have service? Because lots of people didn't. The starting focus, as you can imagine, was on young people, students in school, and particularly with COVID, of course, what was happening? Were they able to get it? In short, the school district right away put together an arrangement using some grant money in coordination with Cox, and was able to work out something that administratively was very, very efficient and was offering very inexpensive monthly service to all of the families. And by the time we were wrapping this up, they had over 3,000 families enrolled in that service. Was there room to improve? Yes, but that affordability was was really critical, and they had worked on a good program for it. Still though, and we would get reports from 501 each time we met, not everybody was enrolled. Why not? What was the problem? So the next level that we ended up exploring was hardware and functionality. If people, they were getting little iPads from school, but if otherwise they didn't have a good computer or only had a cell phone, which is kind of hard to type on if you need to do a paper or things like that, what was it? And also what we got was a lot of reports of people who were on a Zoom who would freeze, who didn't have good connectivity. And so what happened then was a lot of education from Cox. They would run out whenever somebody had an actual documented situation and look at the homes. And so it was clear that there were two problems with that. One was, if you want to call it education about like where to place your router, where to place your computer and so on. But also there was, and then what you had, if you had an old hardware, okay, what are we going to do about that? And those began to open up the much more practical questions. The other was the functionality. You might have a affordability and have help at your primary residence, but what if you're in a family where there's more than one residence, a child back and forth between parents? What if the situation in the home is such that you're not going to put the Zoom on and have the whole household on Zoom with school or whatever? Had a lot of kids going out and sitting outside the school or some other place where they could get Wi-Fi instead of doing it from home. Clearly there were more issues to look into that had to do with the functionality, even with some broadband hooked into their primary home. And last was the user education overall. If people are afraid to call in and ask for help because they think it's going to cost money, either for a service visit or for having to get a new router or hardware or something, then were people just opting out of trying to get it to work at all. So with those issues, Neil got the team started. The primary team through that time was Neil and Scott Gowan from USD 501 and LaZone Grace, who was here earlier, but I don't think is here now, from IBSA. Working with the city, Brent and Monique got involved with that, and maybe some of you have heard, but the city, on behalf of that coalition, recently landed a $250,000 Kansas Health Institute grant. That is a 3-year grant, and it is to fund 2 half-time positions. One, what they're calling a digital navigator, somebody who can help people just get connected, who can help with a marketing program, can do classes and so on, to educate people and get them connected with broadband. And then a half-time tech navigator, somebody who can actually help with people with the physical hardware or the locations of routers and so on that they need to get them hooked up. There is marketing money in that grant, particularly for the first year, to do public education and get people aware of what's available. And then the second and third years of that grant provide for some equipment, anticipate working on getting equipment available to people. And what we've been advised, I haven't read the grant, but what we've been advised in the meetings is that the idea is that that will ideally be through recycled items, where people will donate older equipment and then there will be a vendor who can renovate and recycle and get that equipment back out in the community. What we were advised then as we went through our July 30 meeting is that the idea is then to get additional funds to expand. The thought is that the navigator roles and the outreach need to be more than just a half-time person. Notwithstanding all of that, there's a tremendous collaboration going on. So it was not clear how to do that, just knowing that we needed more help in place. To have them do training opportunities, target different groups, different locations, such as community centers, churches, and so on. Also needed to work more on subsidy for families and just individual households. The idea right now is to transition as many as possible of the 3,000 families in 501 that are on that program into the Federal Communication Commission's Emergency Broadband Connectivity Fund. And there's an application underway or complete to do that.
I'm not sure on that.
Was to transition into that through a USD 501 and public library partnership. There are hotspots all over town right now that people are taking advantage of. The discussion is to sustain and expand the number of hotspot locations. Those in particular can help people who, for one reason or another, being at home isn't working, but they can be known and places that people can access. We asked about broadening out beyond just students and families, and there is an intent, particularly after this year, to broaden out not just to children and families, but all citizens. Particularly, a number of us were involved in conversations about the need for seniors to maintain their connectivity, especially during COVID times. But either way, we've opened a lot of doors with that. And often, as we know, seniors may or may not have the money or the technical skills to operate even their cell phone, much less something that's got a bigger screen on it so they can continue their Zumba classes and their welfare check-ins and so on in a personal way. We know that both ARPA money, the new COVID money, as well as the pending infrastructure plan from the federal government are both expected to have allowances for a substantial amount of money. Because we have a lot of the hardware as a community, the discussions have been to use that, to use especially whatever we can get for digital literacy work. There has been discussion that with the 2 navigators on board and that hiring is occurring, as I understand it right now, that once they are on board, the committee itself is putting together a handbook for them so that all the resources that are available are delivered to them when they start. They're doing that as a collaboration. And the thought is once they're really up and running, that doing a digital equity conference, perhaps before the end of this year, to invite any stakeholders regarding broadband to come and be part of a bigger collaboration would work pretty well. Other programs that they're connecting in with include Impact Avenues and homeless programs. The hotspots, for instance, are really important for them. Also, we've had input from others who mentioned there's a program, a website called PCs for People, and also DCF has a purchase for computer program to help people get the hardware that they need. Overall, the group and the committee, as we wound up some of those discussions to this stopping point, realized that broadband is actually becoming a new utility. You just add that to electric and gas and water and sewer, that broadband will become a staple utility. So just to make sure you know, the working group so far has included Monique Lade and Latoya Burnett Martinez from Community Engagement, City of Topeka. It has included the Topeka-Shawnee County Public Library, the Topeka Housing Authority, the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging, Housing and Credit Counseling, Michelle Cuevas Stubblefield from the Greater Topeka Partnership, Representative Ann Ma, who serves on the State School Board, and they have recently made connections with the Shawnee County Commission, who is, again, approaching things a little bit differently, but is now networked in with that working group. And AARP also reached out to them in terms of coming involved in helping to network resources. So that's just a report. I'll answer questions, or if somebody has one that City Manager or Monique could better answer. We just wanted to bring you up to date. This is a threshold moving into certainly Chapter 2 for us here in Topeka.
Thank you,
Questions?
Councilwoman.
Anything to
Any
add?
questions, Neil?
Councilman?
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the update.
You're welcome. And kudos again to Councilman Dobler for introducing it from the committee level is something we should do. It really worked.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I will move on now to the discussion D item. If you'd read, please.
D is discussion regarding the 2022 City of Topeka operating budget.
City Manager.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a presentation for you related to the inmate program. That's been an item that's been discussed a number of times, and so we felt it best to give a thorough presentation as it relates to that. So I'd ask Monique Baudet to come forward, and she will be giving the presentation.
I noticed here that we do have somebody signed up for public comment on this item. Would you like to have them speak before Monique gives her presentation?
I think it probably would be better for Monique to give her presentation, just in case anything that the public speaker would have would relate to that.
Okay.
Hear our information
All right.
first.
Thank you. Monique, you have the floor.
Thank you. Greetings, Deputy Mayor, Governing Body, City Manager. On behalf of the team, we appreciate the opportunity to present the City of Topeka Inmate Crew Program this evening. Some history of the program. We were able to confirm that the program was birthed in the 1990s. We don't have a date certain, but we do know it was mid-1990s. Through that period in 2004, there were 2 crews consisting of the Affordable Housing Crew and the Brick Street Crew. In 2005, there were 3 additional crews added, the Neighborhood Action Team A, Highway Action Team A, and Highway Action Team B crews. The following year, there's a concrete crew added. In 2007, there were 3 additional crews, the Parks and Recreation Crew, Shawnee County Department of Corrections Code Abatement, and Neighborhood Action Team B crew. And in 2019, the Affordable Housing Crew was changed to the Anti-Blight Crew due to increased blight in the NIAs. There have been some major changes of the program over the years. One is due to the decrease in the number of inmate crews due to a multitude of reasons, such as lack of availability of correctional officers, retirement of inmate crew leaders, and the unfortunate death of an inmate crew leader, and the increased program expenses due to the inmate labor cost. As of April of this year, the Department of Corrections informed the city of the newly implemented Resident Hourly Wage Incentive Program at the Topeka Correctional Facility. Next, the exponential increase of discarded waste in the city of Topeka right-of-ways has deemed blight removal essential. Unfortunately, the pandemic has created a trash blight epidemic. The Division of Community Engagement identified the vital importance to collaborate with Public Works to ensure the continuation of the program to address this issue in our low to moderate income neighborhoods. And lastly, monthly reporting. We are now able to provide 3 various reports, costed by description, which will provide the area and the neighborhoods where we're obtaining the blight, service reports that will calculate labor hours, number of crew members and cost, and workload report that will identify the items that are being picked up. The 2022 inmate crew program will consist of 4 inmate crews. The first one being the property maintenance inmate crew. The description of that, it consists of 1 inmate crew that is led by 1 inmate crew leader that's employed by the Shawnee County Department of Corrections that manages 8 inmates. The services they provide are property maintenance, weed citations, code abatements, and blight removal, excluding the NIA neighborhoods. Their service location and area is the city limits. The property maintenance inmate crew 2022 budget is $165,000. Property maintenance budget line item is $95,126, and the general fund request is $69,874. The property maintenance inmate crew budget highlights are as follows. In previous years, property maintenance and other departments and divisions covered the crew expenditures, and the Neighborhood Action Team B was dedicated to provide those services. Unfortunately, due to the retirement of the Neighborhood Action Team B inmate crew leader, the crews decreased from 2 to 1. Shawnee County Department of Corrections is unable to provide additional correctional officers for the program at this time. As mentioned previously, the property maintenance budget allocation is $95,126 for the inmate crew program. The next crew is the Community Engagement Highway Action Team B inmate crew. And that crew's budget is $225,399.92. The highlights of that are as follows. The budget highlights are the inmate crew, the Community Engagement Highway Action Team B. The overall descriptive is there's one inmate crew leader provided by the Kansas Department of Corrections, 4 inmates that are provided by the Kansas Department of Corrections from the Topeka Correctional Facility. Their services provided are general cleanup and limited trimming and mowing along designated highways and highway right-of-ways surrounding the city limits. Their service location is 41.7 miles within the city limits, and I've provided you with a Highway Action Team map that's included within your packet, and there's an additional 8 miles within the county that's covered as well. The Community Engagement Highway Action Team inmate crew budget is $225,399.92. The Highway Action Team budget highlights are as follows. The inmate crew leader's salary is paid for by KDOT. The inmate labor of $104,000 is also paid by KDOT. The inmate crew coordinator, that is a City of Topeka employee that provides the administrative services, KDOT will pay for 30% of that salary. The program expenses, $20,607 will be paid by KDOT, and $4,915 will be paid by the City of Topeka Division of Community Engagement. The final 2 crews are the Community Engagement and Public Works Street Division crews, comprised of 2 inmate crews, Anti-Blight and the Neighborhood Action Team NAT-A. The crew descriptive is per crew. 1 inmate crew leader provided by the Kansas Department of Corrections, 4 inmates also provided by the Kansas Department of Corrections, Topeka Correctional Facility, and the services provided by that crew are as follows. Removal of illegal dumping, right-of-way maintenance, city property mowing, median maintenance in 21 NIA neighborhoods, mowing and weed control, bridge weed maintenance, bridge winter ice treatment, site obstruction removal, alley overgrowth removal, homeless camp blight removal, community engagement activities in NIA and LMI neighborhoods, and NIA vent setup and teardown. The crews provide services in the 21 neighborhood improvement associations and any identified low to moderate income neighborhoods. We've provided you with the City of Topeka NIA map so you could see the service area as well. Next, we'll just look at some of the pictures of the projects that the inmates are dealing with. On the top left corner, there's the homeless camp that was at Southwest 2nd and I-70. Trash and items are just being strewn on the ground in the right-of-ways. It needs to be removed. The top right corner provides an example of furniture that we're finding in the right-of-ways and in the alleys. The bottom left shows 6 in Southeast Brenner, where there was a site obstruction. The bottom right, at 5th and Polk in the alley, that items were just discarded. And the middle photo shows items awaiting pickup at Lakewood. Unfortunately, we have 2 large dumpsters that are usually filled within 2 days, and therefore we're having to put the other items on the ground until the dumpsters are emptied. The Community Engagement and Public Works Inmate Crew 2022 budget is $477,080.85. Public Works has committed to $287,580.85. And Community Engagement has committed to $189,500. The budget highlights for the Community Engagement and Public Works Inmate Crew are as follows. The inmate crew leader's salaries, equipment, and consumables are paid at $189,500 by CDBG funds. Inmate labor of $166,400 will be paid for by the City of Topeka Public Works Street Division. The inmate crew coordinator, remaining 70% of their salary, will be paid for by the City of Topeka Public Works Street Division. We were asked last week to provide a cost analysis. In the top left corner, it shows that the current inmate crew program cost for crew leader salaries and program expenditures is $477,080.85. The alternate cost scenario 1, which would be for 2 city crews, which would provide 2 crew supervisors with benefits at $174,930, 8 maintenance worker trainees with benefits at $414,368, repairs, tools, and equipment at $27,952, and dumping fees at an estimated $88,628.37, providing a total cost to the city of $705,878.37. Scenario 2A talks about private contractors, for blight removal only. We were able to get some very rough estimates. Our estimation's at 75 loads monthly that they would pick up. Company 1 quoted us at $500 per load with an annual cost of $450,000. Company 2 provided us at $400 per load at $360,000 annually. And Company 3 quoted us at $200 per load at $180,000 annually. Scenario 2B provides private contracting for median maintenance only. Company 1 provided us the estimate of $123,290. Company 2, $156,432, and Company 3, $205,385. In addition, we were asked to provide the resident pay allocation. Director Brian Cole from the Shawnee County Department of Corrections provided us with the following. 67% goes towards incidental expenditures. 25% goes towards dependent support if it's garnished, and 8% goes to Medicare and FICA estimated. They currently are not paying into federal or state taxes due to the inmates' earnings. The Topeka Correctional resident pay allocation. Employment deductions are estimated at 22%. Correctional deductions estimated at 69%, and incidental expenditures are estimated at 9%. I provided a detailed breakdown included in your packet from Deputy Secretary Joel Raby with more explanation. There is no I in team, therefore I'm joined this evening by my colleagues, Director Haugen, Director Jackson, and Deputy Director Trower, and we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Monique. Any questions from the body on the presentation? I know there were a lot of questions last time expressed. Councilwoman Valdivia-Alcala.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is a lot of information to take in a very, very short period of time. But I see, okay, this is my question. Property maintenance inmate crew, where it says 2022 budget, 8 inmates at $5 per day to $7,800. So each inmate is getting $5 a day?
Correct.
Okay. And which part of this cost analysis does that equate to that's back here? Am I missing this totally?
I would have to refer you to, it would have to go towards the item in regards to the contractors. I think it's scenario 2B. That would be maintenance, median maintenance.
Okay, my question is, out of that $5 that they make, how much is taken out?
And I'd have to refer you back to the chart, what was provided by Director Cole. 67% of it is taken for incidental expenditures, 25% is taken for dependent support if they're garnished, and 8% for Medicare and FICA.
Okay, so all of that is taken out of the $5 per day?
Yes, ma'am, that's what he provided to us.
Okay. Can I ask Director Jackson a question?
Sure, you may.
Can you tell me you came from, what state did you come from? Were you director?
Came from Atlanta, Commissioner of Public Works.
Atlanta?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, members of the yes.
Can you tell me, did you use similar processes to this inmate labor where you're only getting folks that are paid $5 a day?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, that was one of the reasons why when Mrs. Glaudet came to see me, we jumped at the opportunity. We recognized that we were getting an augmented service and something that we wanted to maintain the momentum on. If you take a look at those pictures, one of the things that probably was not conveyed that I think you should understand is the garbage is growing. By the time we actually cycle through the city one time with these teams and come back, it's like we were never there. So when Ms. Glaudet came to us and asked us if we wanted to participate, we said certainly. Because if we were to actually staff these two crews ourselves in-house, it would cost us $487,000. So the $287 that we're actually paying, we're getting away at less than half the cost.
So in my mind, that always has to look at numbers over and over again. I mean, your expense when we talk about this one crew where they get $5 a day and have a huge percentage taken out of their $5, that's $7,800, and all the rest is the cost for their crew leader, $146,000. It sounds like, you know, we pay for everything for that, but it's still seen as the best way to go, it sounds to me.
It is.
Has anything ever come up when you've entered into this realm about just a general human rights component out of $5 a day for all the work that they do?
Well, no, ma'am. When you consider the fact that many of the people that participate in this program, we're actually attempting to repatriate into society, and we're giving them an opportunity to actually earn money and save money. And I don't know what the exact amount is. Ms. Claude would probably be able to speak better to that than would I. But we're actually giving them an opportunity to make money while they're incarcerated, prepare themselves to come back into the community and be viable entities as part of the community.
I understand that to some extent, and I think that there's, you know, accolades that could be given to that.
Yes, ma'am.
I also think if you're trying to get them back into community and the message that it sends that your hard work is only valued at $5 a day or $10 an hour, I think it was. Something doesn't just seem right with that equation. And I know that we're trying to save money and we're trying to do due diligence to the taxpayers. There is just something that feels a little bit off, and I'm sure you'll probably tell me too that a lot of municipalities use this type of labor as well that you're aware of?
Well, surprisingly not. The city of Atlanta did. We actually had, I believe it was 8 or 9 crews that we actually deployed on a daily basis. And that program was situated much like this program in that we called them, I forget the term, the trustees, because they'd gotten to a point where they could be trusted to actually work. Some of those persons or some of those people actually left the facility with savings. They were able to actually acquire their own housing and actually utilize that time as job experience, because there was another component to that, and I believe there's a component to that here, where in addition to their working, when there is an opportunity, there's actually training that's being afforded to them in addition to the work that they're doing. So by the time they actually complete this cycle, not only do they have an opportunity or have saved some money, they also have life skills that are associated with having been a part of this program.
I agree about the life skills, and I agree too that they're learning something as they are, you know, working in the capacity that they are. And I'm sure that there's programs that I have no awareness of that they're also getting while they're in jail. I just find it, for the folks that are getting paid $5 a day and having, you know, a number of deductions, whether that ultimately for the time they spend in jail is going to help them buy a house. So I thank you for your answers.
Sure.
Thank you.
Director Jackson, while you're there at the podium, if you would answer this. I think we know the answer, but the inmates who are selected and participate in this program, do they volunteer to do this?
Yes, sir, they do.
So it's their choice to come and work in the outside, as it were, for whatever savings they can get.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, as I understand it, we're developing a waiting list for our program now.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, is it competitive amongst the inmates?
They're choosing to want to work in our program as opposed to others, from what I'm understanding from Ms. Claude.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Councilwoman Ortiz and then Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is Mr. Jackson still at the podium?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, he is.
Mr. Jackson, I just want to publicly thank you for taking 7 dump trucks off of 10th and Powell.
You're quite welcome, ma'am.
7 dump trucks, fully loaded, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. To the point that we were making earlier, as soon as we clean it up, what we actually had to do at that location, once we cleaned it up, we had to create a barrier to keep the people who were actually coming in there from actually coming back and dumping again. Otherwise, we would have had the same situation by the time we cycle back through in a couple of weeks.
I'm not talking about code trucks. I'm talking about dump trucks, the big dump trucks. How much would it cost just to empty one of those?
Councilwoman.
Do we know?
What's that about? What's that? 2.5 tons, Tony?
What's that?
A dump, 6-wheel dump.
Most of those dump trucks that we hold up there are anywhere from 6 to 9 tons worth of trash.
6 to 9 tons, which was about $141 a ton, if you do the math. When we actually when we dump it at the facility, it's $141 a ton.
And we're not done yet.
No, ma'am. We're estimating that we're going to spend about $90,000 this year on this program, just for the disposal.
I'd like to thank you and your team. I'd like to thank Code. It's just an issue, an ongoing issue. This gentleman has passed away, and it's up to us to get it resolved. So the inmate crews would be very helpful in these instances, because we've got our staff out there, and you know, Mayor Button put this in place to try to find some type of just some type of program that could really help us. Again, I want to say thank you. I'm keeping track of the number, but I do want to say thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to say, when we started this process, the city manager made it very easy for us to support this. He was very aware of what we were dealing with and gave us his full support when we actually began having the discussion about how it was that we were going to do it. And we were able to find the money in our budget, recognizing that if we had to do it, we wouldn't have the capacity.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also just want to extend my thanks. Like I'm going to say later in my announcements, August is actually National Water Quality Month. And I know that a huge part of keeping our water quality at a higher level and really helping out utilities is cleaning up litter. So I really appreciate the work that's being done there. I wanted to go back to something that we touched on with Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala's questions. As far as, obviously, there is the tangible earnings, the $5, the $10, whatever the rate is for that inmate, what they're earning. Can we go back to the kind of the intangibles? How does that work experience work? And maybe this isn't the right platform to ask this, but I am curious, how does that work experience kind of translate into the, once an inmate is repatronizing back to society? I'm not sure that I'm using that term correctly either. I'm a dentist, not an expert on that. But do we know, are people who work on these crews getting more opportunities because of their experience on these crews? Are there those intangible benefits that we're not that we're not highlighting in these questions or these presentations?
Do you want me to take a chance? Okay. Councilwoman Nagel, there are a couple of things that, for instance, you mentioned that you're a dentist by trade. But one of the things that you did before you became a dentist was you went to school, and as a result of going to school, you had to learn how to get up on time,
I have the loans to
how
prove
to
it.
be at school, and that's a part of what's actually happening with these members of society that we're working to repatriate now. We're teaching them how to be responsible. If they want to keep these jobs, they have to carry themselves a certain way when they do return to the installation. They have to also learn how to work as part of a team when they are out, and how to take orders as well as to demonstrate initiative when they're out and about conducting themselves with their daily tasks. So it's teaching them life skills in every aspect.
Absolutely. If we're going to continue the education parallel, my school will follow up and make sure that they have a certain amount of people hired or starting their own practice within a certain amount of years so they can see their success rate. Do we have any equivalent of that with our inmate work program into kind of
Repatriation effort.
job experience past that?
Yeah, I don't. No, ma'am, we don't.
Okay.
We're not aware of it at this rate.
Okay. All right, that would be interesting to know, but okay, that's all the questions that I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I want to thank all of you that put this together. I think you answered all the questions that people had from before. And I have two lingering for you. On the page where you had the cost analysis, where one of the questions that people asked for was how could the private companies, how did that compare, the cost?
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, this is for blight removal. The high bid was still less than what it's costing us to do the inmate crew, and then the estimates reduced from there. It sounds like maybe that's the first time we've bid it out in a long time. What were your thoughts about discovering the comparison of the rates?
Councilmember Hiller, if I could just bring to your attention, that's just for the blight removal. So we would have to include the blight removal plus scenario 2B, the private contract for median maintenance as well.
Wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's okay, that's all right.
Even so, you've got $477,000 for the crew. So it looks like, at least with the middle-sized bids or the lower ones, we also really support small business. And I'm not saying I'm against this. People were asking for this information and you got it. And so
some hesitancy, if I could share with you, that from the bids that we received, they were not very excited about driving through the streets and the alleys on a daily basis, which is what our crews do. And we really had some capacity issues with some of the contractors. The lowest bid of $180,000 was a one-man show, but he felt as if he could put his best effort forward. So we just have a little bit of concern about consistency and being able to keep up with it as well, but we wanted to make sure to provide the cost analysis for you.
I appreciate that, and at least we've all got something to look at in the future.
Absolutely.
Also, if I recall correctly, when we talked about this last time, you indicated this $10 an hour fee is new.
Yes.
And you indicated that there was some conversation going on about that. Is anything developed?
That is the conversation. That was the decision of the conversation. They were accepting of the $10 an hour and thought that it would be very feasible to be able to keep the inmate crews full at $10 per hour. Our competitors are at $14 and $17 per hour.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe they were going to offset it, since a lot of that's going to pay for their housing at the jail.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. You're welcome. Any further questions on this topic on the inmate program?
Spencer.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan.
Deputy Mayor, I'll be brief, but I just want to add a little context. I have spent time in prison, and I've spent time around prisoners. That's not breaking news. I haven't actually been arrested, but in several capacities, both multiple years in working with the Leadership Kansas program, both in my capacity as a licensed private detective here in Kansas, working with attorneys, and 15 years down at the Kansas State Fair, where they use the inmate program to do a lot of their tasks, and spending time with those folks out there. I've been through several of the correctional facilities in the state and talked to the wards about these programs. And going through the Police Citizens Academy here and being a part of that current board, I've talked with the folks over at the Shawnee County Corrections several times. And the reason I bring that up is there's probably a valid conversation at some point about whether this is the proper labor for us to use as our city. But the context I want to provide is, while we look at that, first of all, we don't set the rate, whether it's $5 or $10. I'd like to remind everyone that's not set by us. That's the going rate. If we want that rate, if anyone thinks that rate should be higher, the state legislature can do something about that. If any of us know some of those folks and want to have those conversations with them. But those dollars are important. It's not really just about the training those inmates get. To be on a work crew is a reward. You have to earn it, and that's important if you talk to wardens, to give individuals something to work towards. An inmate with nothing to do is a dangerous inmate, but if they can work towards projects and know that they can get out, that's an important tool that these jails and prisons use. Also, those dollars do get put to use. We may look at it and say, well, only $1 or $2 goes back to an inmate on $10, but the state isn't retaining the other $8. It's going towards paying their victims, paying back child support, which is needed for those children and why some of those individuals are in jail. And being able to pay those debts off also is a big boon to that individual when they walk out of that jail or prison, because then they don't have to worry about paying those things back as much, and that benefits them in what their role is. So those dollars don't just go into the prison system. And I just wanted to say, from my experience, I've seen that firsthand and some of the positive impacts of those programs to some of our prisons and jails across the state. So thank you very much. Thank you, Council Member.
Deputy Mayor, if I could conclude, we had a story shared with us the other day with one of the inmate crew leaders. One of the inmate crew members informed them that they had never received a paycheck before, and she is 32 years old. She was ecstatic to be able to receive her first paycheck ever in her life.
Thank you for sharing.
You're most welcome.
Any further comment, questions? Okay, thank you very much, Monique, and thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. I appreciate it. We'll move on now to the number D, discussion of our operating budget.
This was the discussion of the operating budget, unless there are other questions relating to the operating budget.
No further than that. Okay, then we have, go ahead, Ms. City Manager.
Did you have something, Councilwoman Ortiz?
I was just going to ask for just a brief break. It's 8:36. I know sometimes Brenda looks at me and she needs a break, so I'm looking at her and I need a break. So if we can just take a brief break, that'd be awesome.
Councilwoman, I'd like to, if I could, before we take a break, allow Mr. Ledbetter, who had signed up for this discussion item.
I can wait.
Can you wait?
Well, as long as it's not too long.
Oh, we're going to go.
It's going to be about half an hour.
I don't want to have.
No, I'm messing with it.
You don't want to have that.
No.
I won't mess with Mr. Ledbetter.
Okay. Well, taking that under consideration, it's what, 8:37 now? Give us about 10-minute break. We'll take that 10-minute break and come back and give Mr. Ledbetter an opportunity to have his public comment. Anyone make a motion for that? Don't need it?
You don't need it.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Yeah, right. I told you about that.
Okay, Brenda, it's all for you.
Okay, we're coming back from break now. I'd like to move this meeting forward. We have everybody take their seats. And we move to the public comment section of the meeting. We have 3 people signed up. Mr. Ledbetter, do you want to speak to?
This is on budget, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
To the budget.
Yes.
Okay. If you would come forward and speak on the budget, and then we'll move to public comment.
There we go. You just want to make sure you weren't losing.
I'll bet I can get it in less than 10 minutes.
We give you a double, you don't get the extra.
Yeah. I already gave some of my time to you. Oops. Okay.
Quit doing
so thank you, governing body and board, okay, because you really are a board of directors as well. It's one of your wonderful jobs. I want to just tell you, I'm not going to reiterate everything I sent in the emails, but I did send an email that went on the record about budget concerns. If you would at least read that, it's in one page, and it's not that hard to read. It's got a lot of ideas. Some may be innovative, some are simply suggestions, but also on how to cut our cost. I do believe that in this process, we should be looking at a lot of middle management positions that are no longer necessary in different departments. And I'm not even talking about our emergency people, PD and fire department. I'm talking about the other departments. As you flesh out some of these positions, you'll see that what happens with middle managers is they actually slow down the decision-making process. And they actually sometimes stumble over each other on who's in charge of the implementation of the programs or the duties of that department. And that's one of the reasons they taught us, years ago when I was in these MPA programs, to trim that middle staff and flatten it out and get rid of that extra cost, but it also streamlines the organization to be more effective and more flexible. These are just some of the things your manager could be telling you how to do that, but I will since I'm here. I still have great problems with codes, and I heard all of what we're going to do in September and everything, and unfortunately I'm not excited because I've kind of heard some of this before, but I will be offering suggestions. I don't know that they'll be listened to. We did some innovative things in Highcrest when I was president over there that actually made some impact, but I'm not president over there, and I need to break too after 5 years. And so some of that area is just starting to get very rough again. Code enforcement is a fluid, constant battle, and it's just something that you've got to have very passionate leadership to fight that, and if you don't, it's never going to get solved. And you've got to be innovative, and you've got to be flexible in your problem solving and your problem solving abilities. And so I've been commenting on it for 6 years, and the 3.5 years that we've got present management. Last time I heard we were still at 6,000 open cases, and I heard that from Sasha 3 years ago. It's not the cases that you open. Any attorney will tell you it's the cases you close. That's what's important. So that's one of the things I would say that I don't know if it's ever been realized. I want to work on keeping our debts under control. I didn't talk tonight about these GO bonds because Steve actually returned my phone call, appreciate that, and answered my questions. And so there was no need for me to speak. I already knew that 12 million of it was for refinance, which I had no problem with, and I'd already heard the discussions about the 9 million before over previous meetings with GO bonds. My problem is with the revenue bonds, and I still believe that has not been addressed, and we have not slowed it down, and I'm very concerned about that. And that adds to our cost in the long run, and if the money isn't used properly, that opens up a whole nother realm of problems. And with that, I want to thank you, and I will not stick around for public comments, so have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lidbetter. We also have signed up in public comments, if we can move to public comment now. We have Teresa Miller, and she's still with us. Teresa, yay.
I almost fell asleep a while ago. I do have a couple things. One thing I want to say, first of all, is that I would like to have seen in the neighborhood some type of program that there used to be one called Christmas in April, where they had a group of people that came around and you send in applications to them, and they would, if you qualified or they thought they could fix your house, they would do that for you. I know we have programs to help individuals, but here's the problem with that. If you have other problems in your home, say for example, you need your plumbing totally redone because the hard water has blocked your, the hard water we were getting through the city blocks your pipes. And so you no longer have hot water in your house. But because you have something else going on in your house that they want you to fix first before they'll do it for you, you don't qualify. So here you're sitting here with plumbing that doesn't work, you got cold water all through your house, and that's all you have. and that trickles. But it takes me 2 hours to do one load of clothes because that's how it trickles. You can't even see the water coming down. I can't financially afford to fix it. I'm on a fixed income, my husband's on a fixed income, and we both are have a lot of health issues. So I was hoping that we get some type of program that would help elderly people. I will be 67 in a couple weeks. I'm not 55. I can't do things anymore. I have a muscle disease. I have fibromyalgia. My body does not allow me to do things anymore. And my other half is extremely ill. He can't even go outside. He's on 3 inhalers to breathe. So we can't do what we used to do. We have bought things to fix our house and do things for, but we manually cannot physically go out there and do it. So we're trying to find somebody, because we financially can't pay anybody to do it, but we thought we were going to be able to fix it ourselves. We physically cannot. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard spot, because we have the materials to fix what we need to fix all through, except for the plumbing. But we don't have the money to pay somebody to do it. So we're hoping that there become more charities out there that will look into this, because I was raised to respect and take care of my elders. Anybody in my block, they needed something, we were sent down to help them if we knew how to help them. We don't see that much anymore. There is some out there, but not as much as there used to be. The other thing I would like to ask, I never did get my question answered when I asked about the procedures, because I'm curious, and I was confused about the ordinance that we have of the city body was vote on items and then give it to the city manager. Is that an ordinance or not? Because I'm confused on that, because that's not what I'm seeing. But I never got an answer for that. So someday, I hope somebody will give me an answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Mr. David Johnson. Okay, Mr. Johnson, if you'd come forward.
Primary reason I came down today was to give you guys those pamphlets and to inform you, about ways to reduce our extremely high poverty levels. You know how we have in the city. So the main ideas are in the pamphlets. Let's see. I also had some smaller ideas, like you guys could create a website which is like a digital suggestion box to improve communication between yourselves and the individual neighborhoods that make up each of your districts. If you're following me on that. And so, like people just log on and click on their district and they can write a comment, and then you guys in your free time would be able to read those comments, Let's see. Another one is a good idea that was smaller, that's not covered in those pamphlets, is it's like a lady told me about it a few years back. It was like vending machines that would help with glass recycling, maybe in convenient places. You know how people throw beer bottles everywhere? Well, these machines would be in convenient places. You give it a beer bottle, gives you a dime. Give it a larger glass jar to give you a quarter. So that would be kind of effective. She was telling me that they were in the city she moved from. So let's see. If you're interested in the tiny homes for the homeless thing that's in the pamphlet, it would help out a lot of people who are homeless, because it gets them a mailing address, it gives them the financial and physical stability they need to get back on their feet. So the tiny homes for the homeless is like a stepping stone to really get people back on their feet better. Same thing, similar with people with very low incomes and the affordable studio apartments, which is on like the front page. Let's see. I'm not the best at this, so yeah. I know that for my campaigning, when I was campaigning for District 3, people of High Crest that you mentioned earlier, many of them were really passionate about their streets, they wanted new streets and some after-school activities for their kids. Let's see. There's a few people who on some of the side streets have I think they're called culverts. They're showing signs of starting to like cave in some places, and one elderly lady was telling me how she's talked to you guys about it before and wanted to get it fixed before it, got worse. So there's that. Yeah, sorry, like I said, I'm not the best at the public speaking aspect. But, the idea is to basically address these poverty levels because they're continuing to slowly go up. And the problem is that regular people are running out of money, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so much you guys running out of an operating budget, which I'm sure you guys have a tight operating budget. It's the fact that a lot of the regular working class people and lower middle class and working class poor are literally running out of any cash, really. By the time they pay their lights, water, and rent, it's like you're practically broke for the month. So there's no free spending money. Not even there's barely any tiny shreds of free spending money. And that's crucial for our economy and society because people use that to go out and do stuff or go out, eat with friends, or go bowling and stimulate small overall businesses. So there's no free spending money, not even a little bit. It dries up the whole financial flow system. If you guys get what I'm trying to say. Well, anyway, a lot of it, the important information and the ideas are in the pamphlets. So, thanks for the time.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yep.
Okay. Unless there's somebody late, I think that's the last of the public comments that we have signed up. Okay. So we'll move on to announcements. City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In regards to, remember that we do not have a council meeting the next 2 Tuesdays, so we will be 3 weeks before we meet again, September 7th. And primary item there is the budget approval. The announcements that I have, I want to cover a couple programs. We put out press releases on these items, so I won't go into detail, but if others are interested, remember that we did refund or recapitalize the fund for COVID basic needs. We're focusing that on the mortgage. We have other fundings that we had available through grants that we received that will still allow help for individuals that need help with utilities, and that program is available. And if they have any questions, they can get a hold of Corey Wright in the Housing Services Division. Also, Water Share, we put out some information about trying to get individuals that have an interest in donating to the Water Share program. It helps multiple individuals in our community. Up to 3,000 Topeka utility customers are helped with their expenses related to their water bill. I want to comment that the Citizen Satisfaction Survey, individuals may be contacted soon as it relates to taking the Citizen Satisfaction Survey. That is going to be a scientific survey that's done to get individuals' opinions about how the city's providing services and what we need to be considering for providing services in other ways. So that's out there. There will be an opportunity at some point for individuals that aren't asked through the scientific part to be able to give their opinion as well, so that we can capture their thoughts as it relates to the programs. And also wanted to cover the announcement that we had that Amanda Stanley will be starting as our city attorney next Monday. And so we're excited to have her on staff. She's highly qualified for this position. Just ask Mary, she's very qualified to be able to step into this role. So we're excited that we'll have our new city attorney starting August 23rd. Those are our announcements.
Thank you. Move on to any announcements from Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have a few. I just wanted to mention that the 501 students can ride the bus free until the end of the month. Usually their free ride share cuts off on August the 15th, but they've extended that to the end of the month. And then high school students will be able to go to their counselors and get a pass so they can ride free while they're in school. I think that's very, very important. I also wanted to mention that on this Saturday, on August 21st, the gates open at 7:30 at 8 p.m. Topeka Public Schools and myself are hosting the free movie. All donations will go into the Housing Trust Fund. Excited about getting this over with and done. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So hope to see you there. I also, I know Mr. Jackson was there. I don't know if he's left, but He was out campaigning and he hit a lot of the area. He did, and I wanted to thank him for that, for taking an interest in government. But I just wanted to say thank you to him. I tried to get a hold of him and I was unsuccessful, but he did hit a lot of territory, and that says a lot about him. I think on the tubing incident, it's kind of funny. Me and Neil had this conversation earlier yesterday, and so we will be bringing something forth to the council to look at. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is Council Member Emerson still online?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Now, any announcements?
Yes, sir. Just that I know my two boys are going to. yeah. Thank you, Mr. Les. You think as many checks as I send you, sir, for insurance, you'd spell my name right at least. Tomorrow, they'll be going back to Shawnee Heights High School, and I think that means now all of our area schools pretty much are in session. So be watching for the buses out there and be watching for kids. I mean, I'll have a couple kids driving tomorrow, and they don't have a lot of practice near as much as the rest of us have. So watch out for them, and I hope everybody has a great school year. I know this has been extremely tough the last year and a half on everybody of that age. There's been a lot of milestones they've either missed or been modified because of COVID. So I'm really hoping this year is as normal as possible. Hopefully this COVID, this Delta gets under control pretty quick. But I just really hope for a great school year. It'll be so great to go and watch these high school teams play and stuff, and kids being kids once again, like we all got to do when we were their age. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Emerson. Councilwoman Nager, I'm going to pass right now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that you can still get your COVID-19 vaccine. The time to get your vaccine is before you get sick. And with the Delta variant, they're finding that it's a lot more contagious than the original variant. You can go to any of these places and get vaccinated. County health department, it's pretty small. Sorry, there we go. But most drugstores, most grocery pharmacies, either one of the hospitals, Grace Med, please go get vaccinated if you haven't already. This is coming from a healthcare provider. Another thing, and I already alluded to this earlier, it is National Water Quality Month. And while that sounds really exciting and sexy, I'll go ahead and break it down for you. What is the best thing that we can do is help our awesome utilities department. What I did not realize until I was on city council and was getting more involved in this is not only does our utilities department clean the water that we use, that we drink, they also clean the water that we have used. So everything that we put back into the system, whether it's storm water going down the gutters or going through our plumbing with wastewater, is cleaned by the utilities department and goes back into the Kansas River cleaner than how they found it. And to help us all save money and save the energy that it takes to go ahead and clean that water again, you can actually find information at our utilities website at topeka.org/utilities. There are a lot of things that we can all do. A lot of it is just cleaning up your waste and being mindful of how whatever you're running off of your yard or your car or putting in, leaving discarded on the side of the road is affecting our drinking water. Make sure you're picking up your litter, make sure you pick up after your pets. If you own your own home or you're a business owner, be mindful of the products that you use on your lawn and that the salt that you use once it gets colder doesn't get all run out and need to be cleaned out by utilities. Be really mindful of with your car, wash it at a car wash because that will reduce the amount of water that you use and it will make sure that the waste gets processed in a correct way instead of running off into your yard and possibly causing you to use more fertilizers and additional products. There are also great resources that you can find on the website. And if you're finding that whether it's a dirty construction site or you need help figuring out how to better reduce your waste, or you see a lot of wastefulness happening, you can actually call this number 785-368-3111. It's the Water Pollution Control Utility, and they are within our utilities department, and that's their entire job, is to make sure that we are doing everything we can to keep our water as clean as possible for our health and for our wallet. And that's all I've got today for us, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that informative presentation. I appreciate that. Councilmember Dobler.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I get to speak before Councilman Duncan. I know what he's going to say, so I won't steal all of his thunder. I did have an opportunity to thank the Public Works Director and Tony and others that were involved in Urish Road. And I'm just going to leave it at that and pass it on to Councilman Duncan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Duncan.
I'm going to thank Councilmember Dobler for taking a wonderful picture of that beautiful new road, which I stole and reshared all over social media. I believe I did give him credit, but at least the point is, it was a great picture that showed great work. And while I like to take a little credit because it's in my district, it really was a team effort. It did take Councilman Dobler as head of that committee to help me push that one up the hill, and the rest of you to let us shift some dollars around and staff making it happen. So thank you to everyone for, and truly, the feedback has been wonderful. And I will express to everybody that feedback hasn't just been towards me. It has been an extension to the city as a whole and the staff as a whole, from a lot of people who were very glad that project happened. So I want everyone to know that there's been a lot of very positive feedback towards everyone in the city as a whole for the work done there. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Lesser.
I really don't have much, but yeah, I wish everybody a happy school year. The only other thing that I'll say is the COVID's not over. Found out today, lost two other friends in the last couple weeks, and then I may get criticized. You'll notice I was kind of down on my phone a little bit, but I had one of my employees text me today that he tested positive. So I'm trying now to figure out what I have to do with the rest of my staff. So be diligent is all I can say, whichever side you're on. Just be conscientious of others and take care of yourselves. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
Two things. One, on that Urish project, do I recall correctly that it also came in 3 days early? Kudos for that. Tony. And I just have an announcement other than that. The Topeka United group that I'm involved with, hope everybody has time this Friday night from 5 to 9 p.m. to come to Get Down in T-Town. Outdoor music, family festival in front of the Brown v. Board mural down at 15th and Monroe. The headliners will be our own Paradise Band, as well as New Black City, as well as stretched throughout that 5 to 9 period, all sorts of local talent. There will be a couple of food trucks there and some local vendors. So come on down, hang out as long as you want. It should be a really great event. That's it.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Several announcements. One for the Oakland community. There are going to be 2 meetings coming up this weekend, both on the same day, Thursday, August 19th. Both of them will be held at the Lundgren/CRC North at 1020 Northeast Forest. The first one at 5:30 is going to be a utilities meeting that will address the Seward bulb outs and water drainage issues that we have been having for several years, and a plan that has been put in place to address those issues. And we will be there with Braxton, I think, with utilities and some other folks, and we hope for good attendance. Then right
After that, at 6:30, again at Lundgren, will be the Strategic Leadership Academy Citizen Engagement Community Collaboration. We were able to pivot really quickly today and end up having both of these meetings, changing them to the same location. And just want to give a big shout out to CRC's Mary Thomas for making that happen. Also on August 27th, I, along with community activists, some longstanding Topeka organizations, will be having an Affordable Housing and Racial Equity Summit. This will be held also at CRC North, Lundgren School, 1020 Northeast Forest, from 8:30 to 5:30. We are looking at discussion and having speakers coming in that will dialogue on a number of the inequities brought forth with the City of Topeka Affordable Housing Study. So we're really looking for some good dialogue that sometimes is missing in many different arenas in the city. And this is free, and it is limited seating. And if y'all want any additional information, please feel free to call me at 233-7110. Finally, I wanted to bring to the community's attention an article that was printed, that was written by the national news publication, The Intercept. The Intercept is a long-standing, at least a decade-old news publication that writes on topics around the world as well as nationally. And they wrote an article that was dated July 22nd of this year about the October 31st, 2020 shooting by Robert Sinner of several Latino youths. The article is a bit lengthy, but I believe well worth the read. Once I realized that this article had come out by, again, this major news source, I started following the activity of people that were reading the article and some of their comments. And I did see, and I was witnessing all of this on social media, and I did see where there was a couple of individuals, it looks like, ended up referring this because of the deep concern they had to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division as possible hate crime. And that's some of the activity that I saw on social media. I have not read anything in the Topeka newspaper in months about the status of the case, but I think that we know now that there are a lot of eyes on it, as well as my own, since it did occur in my district, and hope to keep tabs on where this case ends up. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to wrap up the comments with my announcements. I reiterate what Councilmember Lesser was talking about COVID. There's a lot of talk still about the resurgence of the cases that we're having in Kansas and in Topeka. I encourage everyone to practice what they feel is the safest activities to keep themselves safe and their family safe. Wear the mask when you're comfortable. Encourage others to do so. Encourage others to get the vaccination if they have not done that. It's anticipated in September, I think, that now some of the people, including myself, who were early on in getting vaccinations will probably be, it's suggested that we would get a booster shot. So keep your minds open to that need, so that when that becomes available, we'll all be able to take those booster shots and keep ourselves and our community safe. The other thing about keeping safe is we have mentioned that kids are back in school now, and there was an article, I think it was on, I can't remember which one of the news stations, but they gave some real startling statistics and very graphic examples of people flying by school buses with that stop sign fully extended. And that's extremely dangerous. It would be horrible if we would have something like that happen here in Topeka. I know that a retired police officer that was with the Topeka Police Department experienced that same horrible loss of a son who was going to a school bus, and a car whizzed past that sign, and his son was killed. I mean, it's just horrible to imagine that you're in that big of a hurry that you would not take the time to recognize the danger you present to youth when you don't stop at those with those school buses, arm extended. So be very aware of that. If you see somebody doing it, get a tag number, turn it into the police department. I think it's important that we help look as much as we can to enforce that and the speed limits within the school zones. People have a tendency to try and creep into them at 30 miles an hour, and before they're done, they're back up to 30 miles an hour. And it doesn't take that long to observe that speed limit at 20 miles an hour. So I encourage people to recognize those and practice safe driving around the schools. And I don't know whether our mayor is watching or not, but I'm sure the body and myself want to wish her a quick recovery and that things get better for her sooner than later. And hopefully we'll see her at our next meeting, September the 7th. So well wishes to Mayor Michelle de la Isla. And that's the end of my comments. I think that we're scheduled for at least one long executive session. And so, Mary, if you would read the parameters.
The motion would be to recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations regarding Topeka Fire and Police Departments as authorized by KSA 75-4319B3. The motion would include requesting the following staff to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Manager Trout, Chief of Staff Cochran, HR Director Russell, Budget Director Wade, Senior Assistant City Attorney Kuckelman, Deputy City Attorney Feeney, Chief Duke, and Acting Chief Wheelis. No action will be taken when the meeting resumes.
Okay. You've heard the need for an executive session. Is there a motion to, okay, see, Councilwoman Ortiz, you making a motion?
Yes, but I would like to make a different motion. I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting until we are done.
So the motion would go beyond our 10 o'clock deadline?
Well, we can make, Deputy Mayor, we can make that motion after we do this executive session motion, and then somebody can make another motion to extend beyond 10 o'clock.
Councilwoman, did you hear that suggestion from Mary?
If you can wait till after this is done.
Okay.
So is there a second for the
Mary, I don't want to wait. Mary, I don't want to wait. Tell her I don't want to wait.
Well, if we can get it to the executive session,
go
then
for a 45-minute session.
we'll set the time
and go
limits,
past 10.
if any. So, Councilwoman Ortiz, do you make the motion for us to go into executive session? Okay, have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Nager. So if you would ask for the vote.
Council members Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aqua,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, good.
Okay, now we can do the motion to extend the session beyond 10 o'clock.
Okay. Councilwoman Ortiz, would you like to make that second motion to extend the time beyond 10 o'clock? Are you, okay, that motion is made and a second by Councilmember Nager. If you called the vote, please.
All right, council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aqua,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
No.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Okay.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, Mr. Emerson voting no, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries, so we'll move into executive session.
As soon as the room is clear.
Okay. We're coming out of our first executive session, and we need to have a second executive session. Mary, would you read?
Yes. The motion would be to recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations relating to the Topeka Fire Department as authorized by KSA 75-4319B3. The motion would include the following staff to assist the governing body: City Manager Trout, Chief of Staff Cochran, HR Director Russell, Budget Director Wade, Senior Assistant City Attorney Kuckelman, Deputy City Attorney Feeney, and Chief Duke. Is there who is going to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, and have a second.
Second.
Dobler. Okay. Why don't all in favor just say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes, and we're back in as soon as.
Excuse to our second executive session for 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Did you break it?
No, we good? We're coming out of our second executive session. No action or no votes were taken. There's no further business for this body. This meeting is adjourned.
No,